Hello everybody, Nitsa Gamer here to get a boxer's fracture and sarcastically say thanks a billion times. Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne is a fascinating game that is often said to be the Dark Souls of JRPGs. So, it makes perfect sense to do a challenge run on such a game because the outrageously inconvenient is a lot of fun to watch. In this game, you are a high school student who one day graduates to become a demon of creation or chaos who needs to survive in the Vortex world and its archaic game mechanics. With the use of Magatama, we are able to change our power and resistances to situational boss fights and hazardous enemy encounters, leveling up to gain new skills to power up the Demi-Fiend. But you know what? Magic doesn't exist, guys. We're just human beings who get hooked on drugs that gives us passive effects. So we must beat every god and demon in this game by using our fists and the hundreds of rocks we have hoarded in our pockets. Can you beat the heart without the Persona Nocturne without using skills? Now, there are various versions of Nocturne that exist, with two of them that got released in Japan only, and us in the West could only play the original and Chronicles through emulation. But with the HD remaster version being the most accessible version that has all three previous versions of the game, I'm going to be playing the Maniacs version of Nocturne on the HD remaster. The only advantage exclusive to the HD version I'm going to take is the ability to choose the skills we want when doing demon fusions, because whoever thought the roll of the dice mechanic was a great idea was programmed by someone who hates fun. Otherwise, this should be very similar to the original Maniacs release that us in the West got. With the version chosen, here are the rules. We are not allowed to use any skills during battle or from the pause menu. The only things we can select in battle is the basic attack, passing turns, summoning demons, negotiating with demons, but only with Demi-Fiend as you need to have a skill to have other demons negotiate, and we can use items which only Demi-Fiend has access to. While all usable skills are banned, all passive skills are legal. Remember, the keyword is without using skills, and trying to get rid of all passives would not only be a pain in the ass, but make less of a fun run. We must play on hard difficulty and get the true demon ending, and the use of the Mercy and Expectations map pack is temporarily banned. I can only use it after I've gotten all 25 Magatama and beaten all 3 recent boss fights. With all the rules set, let's get this run started. We select the Maniacs version, select between Game Journalist difficulty, Hard difficulty, or Masochist difficulty, watch the cutscenes, beat the last person to buy drinks before the end of the world, and get told by our teacher that the world is coming to an end and is gonna be reborn again. Alright, so with the power of our personas and social links, we will bring our main character, Isamu, Chiaki, and the teacher, and we will use our personas to face up against an evil false god and save the world. Let's do this, guys! Persona! Wait, never mind, the world ended. So, we witness the end of the world in a cutscene that honestly gives me chills every time I watch it. Anything with organ music is an instant spine chiller. This little child gave me a bug to swallow because, as Timon and Pumbaa says, it's slimy yet satisfying. Unfortunately, the little bastard stole our hoodie, but hey, at least we got some sweet-ass tats. The only thing that sucks is that I can't sleep on my back, so I'm gonna be drooling in my pillow every day I sleep from now on. And as I started, I realized that the game fucked up my nickname. I entered it as Sub Nitsa, so I can constantly remind you to subscribe to Nitsa Gamer. But now it just looks like a glitchy Sub Itsu Ah. I thought of changing it, but decided not to because I didn't want to waste my stream viewers' time. Which, by the way, all the footage you are seeing is all streamed. Instead, I will waste their time by grinding and raising that death counter. So we reach the tutorial fights where we have 3 mandatory battles and a 4th optional one. Oh yeah, I was in line when I said that these are tutorial fights. For whatever reason, it is so easy to die here on hard difficulty, either due to us missing attacks, the enemies doing too much damage, or causing critical damage, which the Pretas are almost always guaranteed to do. This ain't a skill issue, this is an RNG hard mode issue. I kid you not, I got 5 game overs in a row before I finally got an attempt where I got past the tutorial, and the run itself hasn't even started. You might think that this is bad game design, but trust me, it's a sign of the trial and error to come. We recruit Pixie, fight the demonic crazy frogs which activates the random encounter compass, die, fight the penis dangling frogs again, and then spend the time going between the basement terminal to save and the healing room within the same hallway to fully recover HP. Our goal now is to level up both Demi-Fiend and Pixie while also recruiting demons. Now, whenever Demi-Fiend levels up, you are given an option of giving a point to any of your 5 stats. For this run, Strength, Vitality, and Agility will be the most important stats. Strength increases our physical damage, Vitality increases our defense as well as gives us more hit points, and Agility affects our hit and evasion rate and who in my team goes first in battle. Leveling up also increases the capacity of our HP and MP, and our physical damage scales with level. But here's the thing, leveling up surprisingly lowers the critical rate, magic damage, and physical accuracy the more you level up. Yeah, that is no joke. You can watch these videos to know how flawed the formulas work because Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne was made by psychopaths who hired students that failed high school math to do the programming. We could somewhat maintain the usefulness of magic damage and accuracy by adding points to our magic and agility stat, as we will be constantly fighting against these terrible formulas. Thankfully, we can do this with Incense that we find throughout the game. Oh, and if you're wondering if we could just raise our luck stat to increase our critical rate, the answer is no. Apparently, the game was not programmed to have luck affect your critical rate despite what guides online say. So luck will be the least important stat as its use is too darn minimal, and the formulas in this game that luck does affect are more effective when we raise our other stats. Magic will only be handy when fighting against boss fights that repel physical damage, and to get extra press turns off of weaknesses we can exploit. And since I can't use skills, the only way of dealing magical damage is by having Demi-Fiend throw an item that deals said magical damage. We can slightly increase the elemental damage with passive boost skills giving us a 50% damage increase, and there's only one demon in the game who can naturally do a strength-based fire attack with his basic attack, but we won't be able to fuse him till level 74. So I'll be juggling between strength, vitality, and a little bit of agility for most of the run, while focusing more on a strength build for the Demi-Fiend. Now, as we recruit demons, I recruit Kadama, Will-O-Wisp, Preda, Shikigami, and Halpo. I mainly focus on leveling up the demons that have passive skills, as well as Pixie, as keeping her in my party for the final Kalpa in the Labyrinth of Amala will be incredibly useful. So I grind till level 8 with Demi-Fiend, and then I take on the first boss at the end of the Shinjuku Medical Center, Fornius. Fornius is weak to electric attacks, so in a normal run, both Pixie and Shikigami are perfect for this fight. Alternatively, you could use a Maziel rock that you can find in a cash cube, but I wanted to see if I can just beat the Manta Ray with just my bare fist alone. Unfortunately, both Pixie and Shikigami die, but both Kadama and I prevail as we punch Fornius to death. We obtain our second Magatama, and at this point, you want to make sure that you do a bit of grinding and make use of the last healing room before you leave the hospital. Because once we reach the Lady of the Fount, we will have to pay to fully recover our health and revive allies instead of getting a free heal. Whenever we choose to continue on with the rest of the game, we keep Pixie, who has now evolved into High Pixie, find Shibuya, discover the Cathedral of Shadows, find Chiaki, who I'm having a hard time believing we're best friends with as we just abandoned each other for no reason. And we do our damnness to not die to the random encounters alone. We get at least one other Magatama from the shop, and Hijiri gives us a lead. Now the next dungeon is the Amala Network, and this place can and will kick your ass if you're not prepared for it. Any demons I fuse and have in my demon roster are the ones I'm stuck with for the entire dungeon, as recruiting demons in the Amala Network is impossible. Oh, and don't even try running from battles. Another annoying thing is that despite retreating from battles being an option, it literally never works on hard difficulty. So a random encounter is a battle we must win in or die in, with the smoke ball being our only method of escaping from a battle on hard difficulty. Before jumping into the Amala Network, I leveled up to level 11 and fused Jack Frost, who has Dark Might. A very useful passive skill against boss fights, as basic attacks on a new moon will always be a guaranteed critical hit, which gives us more damage and half a press turn. With a lack of elemental coverage, this is our best method of getting more press turns. Now thankfully, with all the preparations of grinding, the Amala Network was not that bad, but I still had plenty of close calls where I had to backtrack to a healing room more than a few times to save myself from reloading. I do die a few times here, as most enemies take 4 press turns to kill, but anytime the Karanzan appears, it's a kill or be killed situation, as they have 156 HP, 15 vitality, and resist physical. So it takes quite a few turns to take them down, if they don't take me down. Remember, running away from battles is impossible on hard difficulty without a smoke ball. There's a few times where I had to pace back and forth in the healing room just so I can grind a few levels, just so I feel comfortable enough to proceed forward. I even made the effort to find these 4 chests that always bugged me in my initial playthrough, how I could never find these. Just don't open the last one. Now the main boss here is the Spectre. If you can get the Null Fire Magatama from the junk shop, which sadly I didn't, you can nullify their fire attacks. But for me, I relied on Jack Frost's Dark Might and sheer brute force as I punched the Spectres one by one. Once they merge, it can be quite devastating, but thankfully I managed to get through the fight. Once I reach the light at the end of the tunnel, I end up in Hell. Or what is known as the Labyrinth of Amala. We watch a show with trypophobia windows everywhere, and then we end up in Ginza. Here we have access to race jewelry who can offer us useful items, matamas, and element race demons. All of which will be useful and necessary for this run, we just gotta grind for gems to get them. We unlock the Sacrificial Fusion, find Loki getting drunk because the Marvel films suck now, and we make our way to a random warehouse which leads to the Great Underpass of Ginza. Here we find the mannequins, have troubles crossing the water as the encounters are always Asoras, get the Hifume Magatama, which we desperately need for an upcoming fight, and in order to make our way to Ikebukuro, the gatekeeper needs permission from the collector mannequin. But to get permission from the collector mannequin, we need to find him a 100 yen bill. Since Lucifer also stole my wallet, we need to find that bill inside of Ginza inside of Loki's room. But after ransacking the place, we are confronted by the Troll. And this fight can be hard if you don't know his weakness, or a complete joke if you do know his weakness. His weakness is mind magic, so in a normal run, you'd use demons with mind magic. Sadly, we can't do that, and none of the 2 junk shops sell mind-inflicting items. So we have to do this with our bare fists alone. Now the Troll attacks with ice, which we can thankfully null thanks to the second Magatama we got from Fornius. However, his physical moves are what makes Troll a hard boss. He has an almost guaranteed chance of one-shotting any of the party, and needless to say, the less demons we have alive, the less press turns we have, which means the less damage we're doing to the Troll. So the first attempt goes as well as you would expect. Now the hardest part was making it from the Ginza safe room at full health, all the way to Loki's room, get the bill, and leave the room while it's a new moon. Timing this right was tricky, but by leaving the safe room at a full moon, we should be able to get the bill and leave his room before a new moon occurs. With Jack Frost's draining ice attacks and Aquan's repelling ice attacks, any ice attacks on them will make the Troll instantly lose his press turns. I of course also equipped the Null Ice Magatama on Demi-Fiend, so it was just a matter of using Jack Frost's Dark Might skill to take advantage of critical hits. Thankfully, with Demi-Fiend healing and some lucky dodges, Nezuchi was my only casualty as we managed to brute force our way through the Troll. Speaking of Nezuchi, this demon can be fused at level 14. The reason why we really want to fuse this demon is because he drains force attacks, which is going to be super useful against a certain fight that I'm sure you're all excited to see. Matador. This is one of 2 mandatory fiend fights in the game, and this guy is the bane of every first player's existence. His main attacks are physical and force, so with Nezuchi draining force, we can instantly make Matador lose his turns. But also at level 15, Nezuchi learns Counter, a passive skill that has a 50% chance of a demon countering with a light physical attack if hit with physical damage. And the best part is that Counter never misses when triggered, so it's a perfect countermeasure for future fights. As for Demi-Fiend, we have him use the Hifume Magatama we bought from the underpass junk shop to null force attacks. However, covering one of Matador's attacks is not a guaranteed win. There is a very good reason Matador is so infamous and memed to death, because his signature move, Red Capote, maxes his agility by 4 stages. This is a fight that shows you just how reliable buffs and debuffs are in Nocturne. In other games like Persona, buffs and debuffs are more of a scale tipper than it is the most crucial thing to have, especially since they go away after 3 turns and can only be extended to 6 turns, and can only be stacked once. But in Nocturne, buffs and debuffs stack by 4 stages and never go away unless a Dakaja or Dakunda is used. Buffs and debuffs is the difference between life and death and the avoidance of spending hours grinding. But as you can tell by this run, without the use of skills, we cannot use buffs or debuffs, or even Dakaja or Dakunda. And with Matador having max agility, we'll be missing a good chunk of our shots, losing 2 press turns. And Matador is guaranteed to always land his shots. Also, I just noticed that I've been pronouncing him as Matador instead of Matador the entire recording session, and I'm not going to bother to go back and change it, considering that I've heard people pronouncing it both ways. But anyways, once you know how Matador works and come in with buffs and debuffs of your own, this fight is honestly really not that bad. But in this run, over-leveling is unfortunately the only strategy we got to tip the odds of landing our hits. So for a good 2 or so hours, I spend the time grinding. The demons in Ginza are too low leveled for us, so I found that the most efficient grinding spot for us is in the water at the Great Ginza Underpass. The enemies who spawn here are only Isuras, and since their main attacks is ice attacks, we just gotta have the Null Ice Magatama equipped along with Jack Frost on our team to make these fights an easy grind. I grinded for so long that eventually, I learned Counter with Demi-Fiend at level 20. Now, the important thing to keep in mind is that every skill from a Magatama cannot be learned unless you equip the Magatama as you level up, learn all the skills that came before the skill you want to learn, and are at a certain level to get that skill. Since Counter can only be learned at level 20, I make sure to learn Counter at level 20. Before fighting Matador, I fuse Aquans and Jack Frost into Jack-o'-lantern. Or as he should be properly called, Pyrojack. With Pyrojack having Dark Might and Anti-Force, and a few stats better than Jack Frost, we take the fight to Matador, which is easier said than done because the random encounters really love to screw me over. And it wouldn't be so bad if not a good chunk of them resisted physical attacks, took forever to take down, and inflicted my party with poison, which never goes away unless you cure it or get KO'd. I actually got myself a couple of game overs here, no thanks to these random encounters. So I used a repulse spell to avoid the random encounters, but it does come at the cost of having them thirsty for Demi-Fiend's ass the moment a new moon hits. So I timed it right to get Matador during a new moon and fight the most infamous hard boss in the series. Now, I only had one Dakaja rock that I bought from Reg's Jewelry, though with one of my demons missing on purpose like an idiot, it barely made a difference. So I had to fight Matador with him at max agility for the entire fight. I just had to hope that Pyrojack lands his attacks for free criticals. I lose my Sudama very early into the fight, so I mostly had to fight with only 3 party members. Thankfully, with Nezuchi and Demi-Fiend having Null or Drain Force, this fight became very doable. The most worrying move, however, is in his second phase. Matador's Andalusia is an AoE physical damage that can hit multiple times and has the risk of killing my party. I just had to pray to Kagetsuchi that counter triggers whenever this happens. But the other move that is both a worry and a blessing in disguise is Taunt. This move lowers our defense by 2 stages and buffs our attack by 2 stages. Essentially, we can do more damage at the cost of nearly dying. And nearly dying is true as I lose Pyrojack. I revive Pyrojack, but don't put him in the fight yet. After Matador uses Mizan on us, I summon Pyrojack back into the party and get a critical with Pyrojack, and with one attack from Nezuchi, I just beat one of the most infamous hard bosses without using skills on hard difficulty first try. Granted, it was probably due to us over-leveling and two of us having counter, but hey, I'll take it. With the Midora Foundation claimed, we now have access to the Labyrinth of Amala. But the big worry here was getting back to a terminal to save before a random encounter kills me and I have to do the whole Matador fight all over again. Thankfully that didn't happen, so just like a virgin with curiosity, I take a quick peek into the first Kalpa in the Labyrinth of Amala and nearly get killed for it. Now, the Labyrinth of Amala is designed to be a very cryptic and very hard dungeon. There's no mid-saves or healing rooms, and the random encounters are infamous for cheap-shotting you to death, and you can't negotiate with demons within this dungeon. And while it is an optional dungeon, I put optional in massive quotation marks. In order to get the true demon ending, you have to complete the Labyrinth of Amala before entering the final dungeon of the game. But before I can make any further progress in the first Kalpa, I need to make my way to Ikebukuro, which is super difficult because of the random encounters. And with only one Mabufu rock and one smoke ball at hand, I had to force my way through, skipping the majority of the chests on the way. Despite some close calls and a few demon deaths, we make it to Ikebukuro, which has two major benefits for us. One is that the junk shop can sell us magical rocks, allowing us to hit enemies beyond physical attacks, covering fire, ice, force, electric, and curse. While our basic attack is our most damaging type of attack, it's impossible to beat the game this way as there are boss fights and random enemy encounters that null, drain, or repel physical attacks. The second benefit to Ikebukuro is that we now have access to the Demon Compendium, allowing us to register the skills we grinded for on our demons and to purchase them later down the road. You might be wondering why the developers couldn't give us the Compendium from the start of the game before one of the most infamous boss fights, but remember, Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne. This game was designed by sociopaths to frustrate first-time players and have veterans bully them for being Persona fans. Now, it's kind of hard to describe my progress, simply because this is a type of game where grinding is pretty much mandatory, and because I'm doing this on hard difficulty, with a challenge run on top of that, with no buffs, debuffs, and only being able to heal with items or the fountain, grinding is tripled compared to that of a casual playthrough. Pretty much, I had to do lots of grinding until I can beat both the Trial by Combat and the first Kalpa in the Labyrinth of Amala, and the random encounters in both locations can cheap shot us to death, and this process took an over 7-hour stream. Yeah, that's how bad the grinding is in this challenge run. Obviously, it will get easier as we unlock more passive skills and utilize other exploits, but for now, it's pretty hectic getting through this game without dying. And if I need to grind for more money or items without wasting my money at the fountain to heal, I can make a decent bit by grinding in Ginza or Shibuya against lower level enemies. In fact, whenever I need to heal or use a Cathedral of Shadows, I always fast travel to Shibuya as it was the safest place for me to not waste so much HP. Now, the one thing I actually didn't know that I found out during this run is that the mystical chests you open have a chance of a rare item in it, or a lifestone at worst. Now, located just across from the Mantra building is a room where you fight two Onis and a mystical chest that holds strength incense. I fought the two Onis during the new moon to make use of Dark Might, but when I opened up the chest, I got a lifestone. And this is when I learned a new fact, thanks to the chat, and honestly I don't even know if this is common knowledge or not because the game never tells you this. Cached cubes always have a fixed item, but mystical chests are randomized between a fixed rare item or a lifestone, and if it's a new moon, you are 100% guaranteed to get a lifestone, but if it's a full moon, you are guaranteed to get a rare item. So you always want to open these chests during a full moon as they can offer you gems, expensive HP and MP restorative items, bombs of Ryzen, and most importantly, incense to increase our stats. So if you came across these chests and it's not a full moon yet, save it for later or run in circles till you can get a full moon. And as I was grinding, I happened to have found the best method for grinding for money and the occasional item. Between the entrance of the Labyrinth of Amala and the first Kalpa, you do this tunnel mini-game where you avoid these bubbles, whatever you call these, and collect Maka. Although some of these bubbles you can punch has hundreds of Maka in it. So by punching this bottom left one, this right one, and the last one at the end of the tunnel, you can gain over 800 Maka, and at most gain 855 Maka per trip. This game even tells you that you succeeded in collecting all Maka, so by doing this mini game several to a dozen times, you can make a decent profit and get some elemental rocks, buy demons from the compendium, buy any Magatamas from the junk shops, or heal at the fountain. Because another stupid thing about hard difficulty is that Atlus made everything in the game more expensive compared to normal difficulty, not by doubling the prices, but by tripling them. And since the triple cost also applies to healing at the fountain as well, that is why we are mostly piss poor despite a lot of grinding. Why did Atlus feel the need to triple the prices? It's because this game was made by a greedy company who has yet to find out the power of DLCs. The stupid thing is, because you can change the difficulty on the remastered version of Nocturne, it's ideal to change the game to normal difficulty so that way you can use the fountain and buy stuff at a reasonable price before you change it back to hard difficulty again. But since changing the difficulty was not a thing in the original 3 releases of Nocturne, I feel like this would be cheating for the challenge run, so all the prices I pay for in this challenge run is done on hard difficulty to keep the authenticity of how the game was before the remaster. Does that make the game more grindy than it needs to be? Hell yes, but let's face it, most of you love watching us challenge runners suffer, because Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne was made by developers that found the joy in suffering and made this game as a unique way for us to share that suffering. After God who knows how many hours, we finished the first Kalpa, tell the bright light to up his butt with the coconut, but first, we need to talk about parallel universes.
Kagutsuchi is the light whose sole purpose is to empower the one who will oversee creation. Creation is the act of bringing a new world into existence, made possible by the annihilation of the old world. Kagutsuchi will then allow a life form of its choosing to determine the course of the new world. There must be those in Tokyo who yearn to be chosen by Kagutsuchi in order to realize their vision. The shape of the world to come depends on who is chosen and what their reason is. In the vast Amala universe, this vortex world is not the only place where creation occurs. Kagutsuchi rises, matures, and falls in countless other places. That is the way of Amala, as determined by the Great Will. With my master, I have watched how myriads of worlds came into being, how life prospered in those worlds, and how they were destroyed in the end.
Ah, so David Zaslav is the villain of the game. Didn't catch on to that before. Anyway, the first Kalpa is where we gain the most amount of EXP, so I did spend time running around in circles near the entrance. I grinded to level 26 and did the biggest sin no Nocturne player should do by giving up the skill Focus. Anyway, upon entering the mantra, we find Isamu who can take a beating and still be talking afterwards.
Hey, you gotta help me. We don't have time to waste here. Our teacher, she's...
Yeah, this scene went from holy shit to unintentionally funny in the remaster. Now, because of our crimes of slaughtering hundreds of demons for several hours, we are forced into 3 mandatory battles in a trial by combat. Gotta love that dumbass logic. Oh, you were on trial for murder, but since you killed our best guard, we declare you innocent. They didn't have smartphones back then, so the old ways are factually dumber than our ways. So the first fight is against Orthrus, who is weak to ice and mostly attacks with fire. So equip the Null Fire Magatama that you got from Shibuya, and with Demi-Fiend throwing Mabufu rocks and Dark Might criticals from your other demons, Orthrus goes down in 2 turns. Next is Yakshini, who attacks with physical and force and is weak to electric. And since they allow us to prepare before going into the next fight, we change to the Hifume Magatama, throw Mazio rocks, and hit her with Dark Might criticals, and she goes down in 2 turns too. And then we have Thor. First attempt against him ended with him hitting Demi-Fiend with Zeodyne and hitting my party with Mazionga. Now sadly, we don't have access to a Null Elect Magatama till literally after we beat Thor, so the Kamuto Magatama from the Great Underpass Junk Shop is our best one to use to resist physical. And pretty much the fight is just us using our basic attacks, making use of Dark Might criticals, and healing with Demi-Fiend whenever necessary. Thankfully, this is enough to prove our innocence, because the mantra thinks with our bronze over brains. And now, we have an upcoming fight where almost every challenge run I've watched on this game struggles with. By revisiting the mantra headquarters, we come face to face with the Demon Hunter himself, Dante from Devil Makes Wine. Or Raito if you're playing the Chronicles version. Now what makes Dante so difficult is that his attacks hit like a truck and he has a high chance of landing criticals. Even if you were to use debuffs, which we can't, he will always use Takunda on himself. So sadly, we can't even let him waste a press turn to use Takunda. But the plan is to have him resist physical demon and have most of our demons with Dark Might encounter. So anytime he attacks us with physical, there's a good chance of us hitting him back. One of Dante's moves is Provoke, which is the same as Taunt, but also gives Dante more NP. Just like Taunt, Provoke buffs our attack by 2, but debuffs our defense by 2. So just like Matador, this move is a potential insta-kill, but also a blessing in disguise. He uses this move twice, so while our attack is fully buffed by 4 stages, our defense is debuffed by 4 stages. This fight cost us 2 of our demons, but thankfully a counter from Demi-Fiend was enough to finish the fight on our first try. Man, why did other challenge runners struggle with this boss fight? All hail Dark Might encounter! Use it more often, guys! With Dante leaving to see how the Devil Makes Wine, we meet the leader of the mantra Gozutena, who ups our demon stock by 2 and assigns us to help in their fight against the Assembly at Nihilo. When we get there, it seems the fight is already over. Or so they think. As we continue in the depths, we have an easy fight against an Incubus and Kupatengu and obtain one of 4 keys we need to unlock the path further down. This is a dungeon I find most people are polarized on. As a big Zelda fan who likes puzzle solving in dungeons, I do enjoy the puzzle design and visuals of this dungeon. What is annoying, however, is the random enemy encounters. This hits hard with an Augilao and can stone our demons. Eligor and Burith resist physical, so they take forever to take down with our basic attacks alone. Incubus could use a dark skill that can instantly lower a demon's health to 1 HP, and since random encounters occur more often on hard difficulty, we did have to do a lot of grinding just so we can endure most of these encounters. But unfortunately I had to play that tunnel minigame over and over and over again, so that way I can exploit the weaknesses with elemental rocks to save time and HP. I also had to grind for money and any medicine, so that way I can heal myself in between random encounters. Once I reach level 28, I grind for over 15,000 Maka in the tunnel minigame, so that way I can purchase Niarli's favorite demon and all of SMT from the Shady Broker. The first one and the first Kalpa and the 5th Kalpa are the only ones that have useful passive skills, and this Vor Fetish demon comes with 2 passives, Lucky Find and Watchful. Watchful is a passive skill that allows a demon to earn some EXP without participating in battle. I don't know what the percentage is exactly, but it's definitely a useful passive to reduce the need of repetitive grinding since we're going to be doing a shit ton of repetitive grinding. Eventually I learned the skill Might at level 29, which increases our critical rate if we use our basic attack only. A not so useful skill in a normal run, but since punching things is our main way of attacking, Might is a skill we will keep for the rest of the run. And when I reach level 30, not only do I have all 4 elemental boost skills on Demi-Fiend, but I managed to fill his skill slots with nothing but passive skills. So now the main challenge is deciding which ones I keep and which ones I permanently give up on, as there's no way to relearn forgotten skills, because Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne was programmed by people who forgot what convenience is. Now, the one thing you should know about this dungeon is that once you complete it, you can never return back to it, so any chest you missed will be permanently lost. The only chest that you need to be concerned about is one mystical chest on floor B11 which contains a luck incense, so don't miss out on this chest. Also, another exploit we could utilize is the lucky ticket mechanic from the junk shops. By buying at least 1000 Maka worth of items, you will be given a lucky ticket. By obtaining 10 of these lucky tickets, you have a choice between 3 colored boxes. While the item that you get is random, the type of items are consistent. The big black box will either give you a bead or 3 different kinds of gems. The small pink box will have HP and or MP recovery items, but the middle white box will have a Bomb of Rising or Incense, and it's the Incense we're after. Now, the way we can exploit this mechanic is by grinding for money in the tunnel minigame, buying just enough that we pay over 1000 Maka, leave the shop with the lucky ticket, go back in, and repeat till we get 9 lucky tickets. Save at a terminal, and when we get our 10th lucky ticket, we can choose the white box. Bombs of Rising has a higher chance of appearance, so if that's what you get, reload your save file and try again. Eventually, you'll get Incense to increase one of Demi-Fiend's stats by 1 point, while also fully recovering his HP. This is quite a useful exploit that doesn't require us grinding for levels, but since it can cost us over 10,000 worth of Maka, it's not a system I overexploit, as I still want this challenge run to be, well, you know, challenging. And grinding for money and Incense means nothing if I'm not grinding for levels too. After nearly another 7 hours or so of grinding, I reach Hikawa at level 32 and we're forced into a fight against Ose, who's looking a lot more flaccid than usual. His only attacks are physical, so going in with resist physical and counter demons is the way to go. This fight can be tough if he hits you with a focused physical attack, but thanks to Mama Nofu evolving into Arahabaki, we can null the AoE and singular targeted physical attacks. As long as you keep up on healing with Demi-Fiend and make use of Dark Bite criticals, Ose goes down easily. But guess what else goes down easily? The Mantra headquarters as Nihilo nukes it. We go to investigate, and Chiaki tells us what her reason is, but as long as you beat the Labyrinth of Amala before the final dungeon, what you say about these reasons doesn't matter. Gozuteno then crumbles, Isamu escapes, and now we're gonna take on the next fiend fight, Daisoujou. And this fight can either be the hardest or easiest fight depending on how prepared you are, and how lucky you get. His main move is Meditation, which drains your HP and MP away. Thankfully, MP doesn't matter to us because this is also a no MP run, but once we get to his second phase, he will go for light or dark insta-kill moves. Since we can't equip a Magatama that nulls both light and dark, we use a Tetrahedra rock. I'm just gonna call it Tetrahedra rock because it's easier to say. So we use a Tetrahedra rock to nullify any insta-kill attacks. However, the most worrying part is during the third phase. Daisoujou goes for Preach, which can inflict our party with any mind ailments. Thankfully, by equipping the null Mind Magatama, we can survive most of his attacks. Sadly, my first attempt ended with me getting insta-kill by his third insta-kill move because I only had 2 Tetrahedra rocks on me at the time. So I decided to put Daisoujou on the back burner for now and focus on the next dungeon, Kabukicho Prison. This is a dungeon that every player hates because the dungeon mechanic of flipping the dungeon upside down and jumping through holes is so confusing to them that people say that it can take them up to 2 hours to complete it. For me, this dungeon only took 35 minutes without a guide, with 80% of that time being dedicated to random encounters that I can't escape from. Seriously, this puzzle is not hard, guys. It's the same thing with the airlock puzzle from Akuma's Palace in Persona 5. It's easy, and people complain they are hard because they have never beaten a Zelda game in their entire life. Really, the only challenge was not dying during the random encounters. Clearly, people don't use their brain when playing video games because Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne was made by people who know you can't get through life with your brain turned off. Now, as for the boss fight of this dungeon, it's an oversized Mizuchi who is also a random encounter in the same dungeon. Now, the 2 main attacks Mizuchi uses is Mirage to inflict panic and ice attacks. For this fight, I highly recommend the null Ice Magatama over the null Mind Magatama. You might lose a lot of money here, but it shouldn't be the worst thing in the world. So with the use of Dark Bite criticals, we get through this fight smoothly Oh, what the hell? My demons were at full health too. Yeah, apparently Glacial Blast, which is the strongest ice magic in the game, can one-shot any demon that doesn't null ice attacks. So Arahabiki and the null ice Magatama is a good choice. But what makes this fight somewhat easy is that Mizuchi is a boss fight with an actual weakness: fire. So throw your Miragi Rocks at Mizuchi and get Dark Might criticals if you got any demons alive with Dark Might, that is, and heal when needed with Demi-Fiend. Now, as the fight goes on, he will not only get smaller, but he also gets weaker and uses far weaker ice attacks. Sadly, with my lack of healing items that are not medicines and me trying to conserve my bead chains, my demons were going down one by one. Eventually I said screw it and just punched my way to victory. There you go, guys! It is possible to beat Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne by only using Demi-Fiend. That was the entire run this entire time. So, with the Mirage Curse lifted, we rescue the mannequins, including their leader Futomimi, find a pissed off Usamu who tells me to go fuck myself, which, hey, if I could, I would be doing that all the time. I grind to level 35, and I get myself another Tetrajo rock so I can attempt the Daisoujou fight again. But, like a dumbass, I accidentally went into the fight with the wrong Magatama. Like, weak to all ailments wrong. So when I got to his third phase, Preach became my fall. So I failed the second attempt. The third attempt goes a lot better when I go in with a proper Magatama, but I still want to be careful. I can only heal so many demons, and since getting beads is really hard to come by, if I run out, I may have to rely on life stones or medicines, which aren't ideal anymore. But ideally, I want to keep the demons with Dark Might alive to finish the fight, and thankfully, the third attempt was our successful attempt. Now that Daisoujou is out of the way, we go find the Ghost Rider on the highway to hell where we come across Nicolas Cage.
Oh shit! Here we go!
Now, the main attacks Nicolas Cage attacks us with is physical, fire, and force. Sadly, equipping a null fire or force Magatama is a no-go, because both Magatamas make us weak to the other elemental attack. So we go in with the Kamuto Magatama to resist physical. Now, if you really want to waste Nicolas Cage's press turns, you want to have demons that null, or better yet, drain or repel fire or force. So Orthrus is a huge saving grace since he drains fire. While Matador does die in this fight, thankfully this fight was just an endurance and punched Nicolas Cage till he wipes out battle. With 2 Minoras in hand, we unlock the second Kalpa, although I'm in no rush to complete it as soon as possible, as doing so has a huge consequence. But in the meantime, I complete enough of the second Kalpa to get the Moon Key and escape. Which, fun fact, my chat and I didn't know at first, if you get cursed from your Magatama, apparently the ghost girls that get you drunk on healing and steal your money and warp you back to the entrance of the Labyrinth of Amala can also cure curse and not just the fountain. Now, the one thing I was worried about was getting through Ikebukuro Tunnel, as I remember dying here a lot in my first playthrough. Although, much to my surprise, this place did not put up much of a fight as I was able to get through this boring maze making use of only one light ball. Oh my god, Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne, Jesus Christ! Also, another fun fact, apparently it's possible to get bead chains with the passive skill Lucky Find, as seen here when High Pixie finds one in the overworld. So we make it to Asakusa, and since there's no random encounters here, it will be the next best place to fully heal and save for the time being. Here we can get the light and dark insta-killing items, but also here we can get 2 Magatamas that are way out of our reach to buy because hard mode was programmed by trolling developers. While here we find Sakahaki, and don't bother to punch him to death right there for some dumb reason. Talk to Futomimi again, and Hijiri tells us about the Obelisk, a dungeon that made me rage quit hard difficulty on my first playthrough, so I was really not looking forward to this dungeon. Yeah, don't ask why, but I legit played on hard difficulty from the start and only switched to normal once I got to the top of the Obelisk. That was such a bad idea. I strongly don't advise doing your first playthrough on hard difficulty. Anyway, it was around this point that I finally took the time to watch a video and learn where all the money is in the second tunnel minigame. Here we can get a lot of dis items for ailments, and anywhere from 1,000 Maka to over 3,000 Maka. And also, I'm at the right level to fuse Daisoujou since I got a Death Stone while in the second Kalpa. While we may not be able to use his best skills like prayer and meditation, he has a lot of coverage when it comes to affinities. Here I fuse him with Life Gain, Counter, Dark Might, and Bright Might. And with at least 3 particular boss fights being more efficient if we have Bright Might demons on our team, we need to start fusing demons with Bright Might over Dark Might whenever possible. And since Daisoujou had 2 skill slots available, I fused him with Kushimitama and gave him Null Ice and Null Force. And depending on what Mitama you fuse a demon with, you can get the same demon with at least 2 of their stats to increase with an extra skill if you do have empty skill slots available. So, with a nearly invincible Daisoujou on our team, we go through Nihilo's second headquarters and make our way to the Obelisk. Though I don't start on the Obelisk just yet. Knowing how much of a climb this tower will be, I want to be over-prepared if I can. First, I need to go through an optional part of the second Kalpa known as the Cursed Corridor. This can be a death sentence, especially on hard difficulty going down here. So to prepare, I have to save as many smoke balls as possible, use a repulse spell at the start of a new moon so I can skip enemy encounters on my way to the Cursed Corridor, and once inside, we will be taking severe damage with every step we take. Float balls do not negate the damage you take, and healing is not ideal until you're just about to enter the battle. But entering a battle can also be a death sentence, as the demons here are late game demons. How late exactly? Like demons from the final dungeon late. So, with the use of Mind's Eye to reduce the chance of getting ambushed from behind, we use a smoke ball whenever we enter a fight. Once we make our way through the Cursed Corridor, we talk to an Ifrit who will give us 250,000 Maka, but we can celebrate the money once we get out of this Kalpa alive. So I go back through the Cursed Corridor with thankfully no encounters thanks to the shortcuts, talk to the Ghost Girl since it's the fastest way to escape the Kalpa, and we have the money we need to buy the 2 Magatamas in Asakusa. But since we got a lot of money to use, I dedicate my time to buying a lot of medicine and double digits of elemental items so we can get through the Obelisk as efficiently as possible. And I make use of the lucky ticket exploit so that way I can get a good amount of incense here, only reloading if I get a Balm of Rising or a Luck Incense. While this preparation may seem like overkill, I beg to differ. Once in the Obelisk, we're in what may be a cool and atmospheric dungeon, but also one of the longest dungeons in the game. So long that there are 5 sub-terminals throughout the entire dungeon, 1 Cathedral of Shadows, and 1 healing fountain on the way to the top. And with our lack of being able to heal, having 99 medicines is a must. I do die a fair amount of times, mostly due to insta-kill dark attacks, so I highly recommend going through the Obelisk while wearing a Null Dark Magatama. Now, the only enemy that is immune to physical is our Habaki, and since they are the only enemies that are weak to fire, use Meragi Rocks on them and look up a guide to find out the weaknesses of every other demon. Trust me, you're in this dungeon for a long while, so any margin of error could be the difference between failure or success. Now, when it comes to the mystical chests, you'll likely have to miss out on most of them so that way you're not wasting time and resources, though the one chest that I recommend not skipping out on is the chest on floor 77, as it's the only mystical chest with a magic incense. Once we reach the top, I grind to level 42 where I can learn the passive skill Null Fire, and from this point forward, we're giving Demi-Fiend a permanent nullification to fire, as we will eventually replace it with Drain Fire later on, and that will be an endgame skill. Now, when you do the fight against the Moray sisters individually, you have to fight them in one moon cycle of this puzzle, or otherwise you'll have to do the fights all over again. Against Cloth though, I highly recommend using the Null Light Magatama since she can cast insta-kill light attacks on top of being able to heal. For Lachesis, use the Kamuto Magatama and attack with physical only using magic if she puts up a Tetrakarn where, unlike Persona, doesn't stay on an enemy for the entire fight and will go away after one turn. For Atropos, equip the Null Ice Magatama, and with us nullifying fire, we can block 2 of her possible attacks. After you fight them individually, you have to fight them together at once. And what's so weird is that, admittedly, I struggled on them individually, but for some reason, fighting them together kinda makes the fight easier if you have an idea of how they work, simply because they do the same thing, but less. So I keep the Null Ice Magatama equipped and focus on the sisters from right to left. Since Clotho is healing and Lachesis is using Makakaja, which actually increases the effects of healing, you want to get rid of the healer first, the buffer second, and the main attacker last. And with the use of Dark Might Criticals, some satisfying Magic Mirror Reflex, and only one use of a Dakaja Rock, we got through this fight somehow easier than when we fought them individually. We get the Jed Magatama and rescue our teacher who has found her goddess named Aradia. Now back in the Ikebukuro tunnel, there are 4 Onis that you are worried about, but may have gone past them. That is because the 4 of them, with questionable names, are optional boss fights. Once we defeat all 4, we can get ourselves another Magatama. Though, because of this run, we need to be picky and fight them over the course of the game. I go after the first Oni, Fuki, and while he thinks we're his bottoms, we come out on tops as we nullify his force attacks and throw him the Zeal Rocks and hit him with Dark Might Criticals. This was quite a close fight as I lost most of my demons, but I did manage to beat him, so I'm definitely gonna grind before I attempt another Oni. And for the next 3 hours, it's pretty much a long grind session to fuse better demons, including Nicolas Cage, and trying to get more demons with Bright Might. After some fusions, we go through the Amala Network again because, and thanks to the Repulse Bell, we can skip a good chunk of the random encounters. Though, be careful whenever Legion shows up since he resists physical and is a damage sponge to take down. We do another fight against the Spectres, and this time, they block all magical attacks, so physical is our only way to go. Sadly, I didn't know when they were gonna show up, so I lost the first round. The second round, I went in with some Dark Might critical damage, and this definitely helped. These guys can do a lot of damage, so the best Magatama to wear is pretty much whatever gives you the better stats. Oh, and after the fight, we gained 2 levels with Demi-Fiend. Don't know if this is due to the high number of enemies, but hey, I welcome it. We find Husamu, who copies us and gets some lame-ass tats, and he explains his reason. And then we find Hikawa outside the Mantra headquarters, and he tells us his reason. After checking up on the mannequins, we now have access to another junk shop with the collector mannequin, and sadly, we are nowhere near the amount of Maka to get any of these 3 Magatama. And both the physical ones are the Magatamas we need for Retaliate, Endure, and Life Surge. But for the time being, I finally made the effort to complete the second Kalpa for real, and the Lady in Black gives us an explanation on why the Great Will is killing off our world as a tax write-off.
That incident at the park followed shortly thereafter. You see, for creation to be possible after the conception, certain preparations were necessary. Thus, the demons which he summoned were unleashed, and a bloody act of carnage ensued.
So, let me get this straight, Great Will. World War I, not worth resetting the world. The Holocaust and World War II, not worth resetting the world. Vietnam War, not worth resetting the world. Some murders that happened in a park, oh my Kagetsuchi, time to reset the world. Man, the Great Will is a dick. Now, remember when I said not to complete the second Kalpa as soon as possible? Well, this is the reason why. Once we reach the bottom, we unleash the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, and the first one, White Rider, will stalk you like a horny fan at every terminal where a healing fountain is. While this is not a soft lock per se, since you can still have the Ghost Girls fully heal you, this could be a major annoying obstacle when you first enter Asakusa and end up fighting the damn thing before you even reach the terminal. While it is possible to get away with having to fight him, it's RNG whether or not you are forced to fight him. So make sure you prepare yourself before completing the second Kalpa. Make sure you equip the Null Light Magatama, and once in the fight, he will summon 2 Virtues. The Virtues are weak to force attacks, so we can throw a Mazon Rock to get an extra half press turn, while using Bright Might Criticals on White Rider with my other demons. Sadly, the first attempt does not go so well, especially since I accidentally killed the Virtues. Why is this bad? Well, despite the encouragement to get rid of them since they can cast Raccoon on you, killing any of the virtues will cause a Dragon's Eye to happen, where Right Rider will resummon them back into the fight and they will have more press turns than if you did not defeat them. So for this fight, only use Mizanrox a couple of times with Demi-Fiend, otherwise heal or punch White Rider. His two main attacks will be God's Bow to insta-kill you, or Prominence. Since we know both attacks with Demi-Fiend, it's just a matter of playing smart, knowing which items to use to keep your demons alive, and eventually, you can basic attack White Rider to death, leaving the two virtues to their doom. After White Rider, I go after the next Oni, Suki, and we tell him to suck it by wearing an all-ice Magatama and throwing Miragi rocks at him, and hitting him with Bright Might criticals. He's about the same level as difficulty as the top we killed earlier, so the fight went mostly smoothly. Oh, it's a full moon, open up the chest! Agility Incense, holy shit! Oh, I'm so glad I opened that up in time! Afterwards, we go through the Asakusa Tunnel, which thankfully is shorter than the previous tunnel, and we end up on the east side of Yoyogi Park. Our teacher tells us to go and get something for show and tell, but before I even attempt this dungeon, I need two things. Lots of medicines, and lots of elemental rocks. And you know why if you know the next boss fight coming up. So now, it's about time to do the worst part in all of Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne. Play an arcade game called Puzzle Boy. Now, I would usually mock SMT fans for sucking at puzzle design dungeons, but this puzzle is legit inexcusable and arguably the worst part of the game. Anyone who has experienced this minigame has PTSD from it. Puzzle Boy looks simple by concept. You push blocks around, push blocks into holes to create paths, and make your way to the blue cube. And while the first 7 stages are easy, most of the stages are ridiculously hard for no reason. While Puzzle Boy is not required to get any of the 6 endings in this game, it is required if you want to get all the Magatama, as you get the Gaius Magatama from completing the game, and you have to get all 24 Magatamas in order to get the 25th Magatama. Now, there's a total of 20 stages, and while you might think, why not just play the game gradually over the course of, well, this game? Well, that's because we're playing Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne. There's no mid-saves, and just like a real arcade game, if you quit and play it again, you have to play from stage 1. This has to be done in one sitting, and considering how hard the stages get, it's practically required to use a guide. Huge shout out to Buvmeister for guiding me and several other players through this horrible minigame. Now, even though the tutorial is only 12 minutes long, the most efficient way to follow the guide step by step is to change the playback setting to 25%, so that way you can follow without accidentally missing a step or needing to pause, and this takes nearly an hour long. I managed to complete it in 48 minutes, but only because of Buffmeister's guide. Seriously, any complaints that people have on Puzzle Boy is 100% justified, because Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne was made by psychopaths who secretly specialize in psychological torture. The only redeeming factor is the music, and a better Null Light Magatama with no weaknesses, but otherwise, fuck Puzzle Boy. Anyway, we make our way through Yoyogi Park with another annoying puzzle that I can understand is annoying, but if you go to the top of these structures, you can make a mental note of where every pixie is, making the first 2 squares of this park easy. The most annoying part about this dungeon though is that the encounter rate is insanely high. I definitely recommend taking a lot of poison arrows with you if you want to get through this dungeon mostly unharmed. Once we find Sagahaki again,
here we go again.
He summons the most lovable and hateable elephant of all time, Giri-Girimehkala. And if you have played any SMT or Persona game before, then you know that this rebellious elephant has a belly that can bounce our physical attacks right back at us. So the only way to fight him is by using magic. If you don't see the problem here, here are the bullet points. Demi-Fiend is the only one who can attack with magic by throwing weak AoE rocks at him, and Demi-Fiend is the only one who can use items to heal and cure ailments. Any other demon in our party only exists to pass their turn so Demi-Fiend can act twice, and potentially eat up Giri's press turns, which she has 3 of. And the two skill types that Giri goes for is a hard-hitting physical attack or inflict in panic. If Demi-Fiend gets inflicted with panic, then we're not healing or damaging the boss, and the skill Blight has a chance of inflicting poison. Poison is a curse attack, panic is a might attack, and physical is a physical attack, so being able to nullify or resist all three with Demi-Fiend is not in our realm of possibility right now, since we want to keep all the 4 boost skills on Demi-Fiend for as long as possible. If we resist physical, we're still taking damage from physical and have a chance of being inflicted with panic. If we null mind, the physical damage is too much and we still have a chance of being poisoned. An ailment that has to be cured and never goes away. And since we can only do a little bit over 100 damage, even with our passive boost skills, we need to be able to throw anywhere between 30 to 40 rocks at him. Doable if we can survive his attacks, but sadly, this is now our biggest roadblock. So, what do? Well, we could still grind for levels, but that's definitely not going to help us since magic damage does get worse over time. But we can still prioritize raising our magic, vitality, and agility stat for a better chance of winning the fight. We could also grind for money and overexploit the lucky ticket system to raise our stats faster without needing to fight all the time, which means more tunnel grinding. I probably wasted more than 24 hours on this stupid minigame alone. Seriously, I'm starting to believe that I gave Puzzle Boy a hard time. And while we do this, we still have 3 fiends to fight, and we can see if we can beat the remaining 2 Onis in the Ikebukuro tunnel, so there's still stuff for us to do. So next I fight Red Rider, and like a dumbass I had Pixie in the front lines as I was using her for her Lucky Find ability not too long before this. Needless to say, the first fight did not go so well. Unlike the virtues, we cannot exploit the weakness on the powers without Red Rider nullifying the attack and eating up 2 of our press turns. So we need to brute force our way through Red Rider only and deal with the powers for last. So I rely on a resist physical Magatama and dark my criticals from my demons while either healing or slide punching with Demi-Fiend. And if you're wondering why I don't have Nicolas Cage in the front lines, that's because his attack all skill is a detriment that can easily kill the powers, causing them to not only be resummoned, but give Red Rider more press turns. Terrorblade is the most devastating attack because not only can it hit you once like a truck or twice like 2 trucks, but it has a chance of inflicting panic. And sadly, the second attempt did not go so well, mostly due to bad luck. Now, because the powers can use Tarakaja, I do use a Dakaja rock so that way I have a better chance of surviving Terrorblade, and thankfully during the 3rd attempt, we beat Red Rider and then take down the powers soon after. So the trick to win this fight is just to simply be good at video games. Next is Black Rider in the hospital, and thankfully this fiend is only hard if you're bad at video games, because he's easier than the first 2 riders. Hit him with Bright Might criticals, live with Mute as it literally means nothing for us in this run, use him as Zeal Rock to get an extra half press turn off of Legion, but make sure not to defeat them, heal when needed, and make sure you bring in demons with Null Ice at the very least. This fiend literally took 5 turns and we beaten him on our first try. Now, even though there's 1 rider left for us to defeat, we can now start exploring the 3rd Kalpa, and for the next 7 hours, it's a grind of us learning the 3rd tunnel minigame where we can gain over 6,000 Maka per trip, completing the strength and magic sides of the 3rd Kalpa, but not making any effort to complete the 3rd Kalpa yet, fusing better demons or demons that can evolve, and grinding to a high enough level to fuse some null physical demons, so that way we have a chance against both Giri-Girimehkala and Kinky. But on top of doing all this grinding and money grinding, we overbuy a lot of resources from shops, getting as much incense as possible. Reloading if I get strength incense or luck incense. And after several hours of this, I have finally maxed out Demi-Fiend's vitality stat and almost maxed out his magic stat. While sure, this might arguably make the rest of the game a cakewalk, we can't really get to the rest of the game till after a certain rebellious elephant is dead. So, let's see if this will make a difference against Giri-Girimehkala. We throw a rock and... well, at least it's more than whatever stat we were at last time. Yeah, this really does come to show you just how unreliable a magic build is compared to a strength build. Fun fact, Force and Fire actually does more damage than Ice and Electric, so if you're wondering why I keep using Force Rocks during this fight, that's why. It's likely made this way because Ice and Electric has a chance of inflicting Freeze or Shock. Now, while having max vitality helps us a lot in taking the damage taken, what really saves us is Shiki-Oji and Gog Magog nullifying physical, and I only have Hellbiker in the fight mainly to null mine when he inflicts panic. After 16 minutes of throwing rocks, healing, and passing turns, Giri-Girimehkala goes down. But now, we gotta fight Sagahagi.
Enough of this. Anyone who gets in my way dies.
We then present a gift to our teacher, and now we have to make our way to the Mantra headquarters, which has been locked for some time now. Down in the basement, we can open the door if we have at least 24 points in our strength stat, allowing us to get another Magatama, and this one is important to get the Avenge skill for the best counter damage. We find Chiaki, who goes all Tears of the Kingdom and gives up her arm to be more like Groot. Oh, you thought I was gonna go with a discovered internet porn joke? I'm not dirty minded 100% of the time, guys. 99% would be more accurate. And you gotta love how the Angels, who are known for being warriors of law and order, join arguably the most chaotic reason. You know the Great Will is doing questionable things when his own warriors go full chaos. Anyway, Hijiri goes a little cuckoo when he hugs the Amala drum like it's his lover, and he threatens to go all Britney Spears 2007 on us, as we are all reminded, oh yeah, this asshole writes tabloid magazines. Thankfully, Osamu saves us from gossip, but not so thankfully, we go to the Amala Network for the third time. But thankfully, we don't have to do a dungeon this time, as it's just one hallway. But not so thankfully, we have a third fight against the Spectres. Just use Bright My Criticals here, and this fight is thankfully an honest-to-God joke. We then reach the Amala Temple, which is divided into 3 different temples, which we can do in any order. But before we do any of them, I decided to go after the third Oni, Kinky, and just like Kinks in real life, there's a lot of physical damage involved. And since we're his playthings, he resists 90% of any physical damage we do to him. So I use my demons for Bright My Criticals while Demi-Fiend throws Force or Fire Rocks at him. Kinky will use Beast Eye for his first phase, which gives him 2 press turns, and then in his next phase he goes for Dragon's Eye, which gives him 4 press turns. Throughout the fight, he will buff his attack and defense while debuffing our attack and defense, and while we can negate his buffs with a Takaja Rock, we have no means of being able to negate debuffs on ourselves. Oh, not because we can't use skills like Takunda, but because there's no such thing as a Takunda Rock in this game. Because Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne was made by people who believe that challenge does not come with equal opportunities. Now, since Kinky only attacks us with physical attacks, I highly recommend bringing in demons with null physical, or counter if they lack a null physical. After a good while of throwing rocks and Bright My Criticals, Kinky goes down. That's 3 suggestive names down, only 1 more Oni to go. I then went after the 4th rider, Pale Rider, as I felt I was endurable enough to fight him. For this fight, just attack Pale Rider, Bright Mighten the marrow out of him. One of his attacks is Ice, so Null Ice Demons are the way to go. The Loas attack mainly with Venom Bites, so Null Physical Demons are also the way to go. But what makes this fight a pain is the lowest ability to cast Debilitate, a debuff on our attack, defense, and agility. And as mentioned before, Takunda Rocks don't exist, so only by resummoning our demons can we have their stats at neutral. Sadly, no thanks to Debilitate, that means we'll be missing our attacks more often, which eats up 2 of our press turns. Now, even though we do accidentally kill one of the Loas no thanks to Retaliate, which led to a Dragon Eye triggering, thankfully after this turn, we defeat Pale Rider and the Loas soon after. A simple enough fight if you have maxed out your vitality like I did. Next, we go find Mother Harlot, the penultimate fiend of the game and an absolute joke of a boss fight in a normal run of this game. What makes her threatening is that she repels physical damage, making magic the only way to go. And if you see what the issue is here, don't worry, Demi-Fiend being the only one who can damage Mother Harlot is not the worst part of the fight. Now, even though our demons can only pass their turns, they are handy for not only giving Demi-Fiend 2 turns, but to null her electric attacks. So yeah, going in with the Narukami Magatama is the way to go. But here's the thing, other than her possibly inflicting a mind attack, her move Beast Roar is a heavy hit and damaging almighty attack that we cannot null, and every time she uses it, it restores 10% of her max HP. Now, doing the math, even if we threw 2 rocks per turn, we only deal around 300 points of damage. Now this fight in a normal run is easy because you can use skills to buff, debuff, heal, and hit her with strong magical spells, but in a no skill run, Demi-Fiend is the only one who can attack and heal, and since we gotta worry about healing, she can pretty much undo our progress, and there's no clear pattern on when she uses Beast Roar. All we know is that she has 5,000 HP, and if she uses Beast Roar 2 turns in a row, she might as well be resetting the fight. And mind you, I am maxed on my magic stat while using all 4 elemental boost skills, and there's no way we can increase our magic damage due to the bad programming. Sure, leveling up more might give us more HP, but it worsens our magical damage output. So because of this, we lost to Mother Harlot. The easiest fiend of the game is the hardest in the no skill run. We were getting nowhere with her Beast Roar ability, as well as her ability to cast Dragon's Eye to get more press turns. So we have 2 options. Either we grind to have better demons, more HP, and more points in our luck and agility stat, or we grind to level 74 to fuse a very specific demon that can carry the entire fight for us. Whatever option we go for, all we can do for now is to leave Mother Harlot on the back burner for another time. The only annoying part about doing that is that we cannot enter the 4th Kalpa till all fiends, including Mother Harlot, are defeated, but thankfully there's still more story and side quests for us to do. So when it comes to the Amala temples, I knew which one I wanted to get out of the way first, and that's the Red Temple. Thankfully, by using a guide, the Red Temple is not that much of a threat. Inside the temple, the main boss is Scotty, and she's the main reason I wanted to do this temple first, mainly because she drains physical attacks, making magic the only way to go. Scotty's main attacks are physical, curse, force, and light, but her most devastating move is Earthquake. She cues that she's going to use this move after buffing herself with 2 Tarakajas, and if we don't debuff her, she can one-hit kill us. Though the first 2 attempts I only lost simply due to me lacking enough Takaja rocks and equipping the Null Light Magatama because the website I was using recommended that I use it. But just like anything on the internet that tells you that you have cancer, it's always incompetent of giving you the correct information. So for the 3rd attempt, I went with the Gaia Magatama to resist the Earthquake attack, but at the cost of possibly giving her more press turns with the Force and Light. But since I'm going in with Null Force demons, this shouldn't be much of an issue. Thankfully, I can tank the first Earthquake despite 2 Tarakajas, but after 4 Tarakajas, that's when I need to use the Takaja Rock so I can survive. But sadly, attempt 3 did not go so well either. That's when I realized that I'm just a dumbass who's bad at video games because the Komodo Magatama is clearly the best way to go. It does make you weak to her curse attacks, but once Mute is applied to Demi-Fiend, it never goes away, so it always misses when she tries to inflict you with Mute. So, same strategy as before. We tank the first Earthquake and use a Takaja Rock when she buffs 4 times. After throwing enough Meraki Rocks at her, she will eventually go down. I then take the time to grind to level 59 so that way I can fuse Giri-Girimehkala. While he is a level 58 demon, he can only be fused after sacrificing a Vile demon during a full moon, which gives him an extra level. But now that we have a demon who repels physical attacks, this should make fights go far more efficiently for us. Next, I head to the Black Temple. Or at least I was, and accidentally ended up at the White Temple next. Oh well. And this temple is probably the saddest excuse of a puzzle ever. Randomly warping you to different rooms is not a unique puzzle, Atlas. You did good with the prison, and bad with the Amala Temple. Then again, Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne is programmed by people who have never played a Zelda game in their life and have no idea how to do a proper puzzle box design dungeon. Most of the time, at least. Anyway, the next fight is Albion, and the 4 miniature versions of himself. The strategy here is to Bright Might them, but make sure not to kill Albion or all 4 of his mini-men before ending our turn. If Albion goes down, his minions will revive him. If his minions go down, Albion will revive all 4 of them. But the key strategy here is that Albion will only revive them if all 4 go down. So, if we take down at least 3 of the minions, then no revives will happen. Now, the only demon that I fused with an attack all passive is Giri, and I have everyone else focus on 1 minion at a time. And once it's down to 1 minion, I attack him and Albion till they are in their low health animation before using the next turn to finish them off. And honestly, this fight was way too easy. This took 4 turns, and they only attacked my demons with physical, 2 which nullify physical, and 1 who repels it. So we actually beat this fight without using skills, and without taking damage on hard difficulty first try. That's awesome! 2 temples down, only 1 more to go. And I swear to God, I have no memory of the Black Temple. It was honestly that forgettable of a temple. Now, at the end of the Black Temple is Aciel, the absolute potty mouth who hides his mouth underground, and you can see why in a little bit. Now, during the first turn, he will use Dragon's Eye and spend 5 turns draining our MP away. Oh no. And during his second turn, he uses his signature move, Storage! Yeah, Soul Storage. This is the Black Temple where we need to use light balls to see in it. So Storage Suns ain't Aciel's fucking business, and he gets us all down to 1 HP, followed up with a basic attack, and thankfully not on Demi-Fiend. So we heal up, keep hitting him with Bright Might criticals, get a Tempest Repel back at him at least twice in the fight, and anytime he hits Demi-Fiend, he follows up with a Retaliate. And honestly, aside from the need to heal, we just threw punches till we save Aciel from the horror that is Twitter cancel culture. With the final temple completed, we make our way to Isamu, who offers us to do the honors of sacrificing Hijiri. So I made a poll asking my audience if we should do it, and the majority voted to sacrifice the man. Yeah, nobody feels sorry for this guy. But that's what you get for running tabloids trying to live off of other people's lives and never doing anything with your own. With Isamu's god Noah awakened, we make the effort to complete the luck side of the third Kalpa, which has a magic and strength incense inside of it. So if you want to get all the mystical chests within this part of the Kalpa, you will need at least 18 stats of luck if you want to explore the whole thing. We then return back to Asakusa, where sadly, the main town has random encounters now. Oh, and the mannequins are dying everywhere, but the first one is far more severe. Anyway, we reach where Chiaki corners Futomimi. Now, depending on whether or not you side with Chiaki, doesn't really matter if you're going for the true demon ending, but it does matter when it comes to the next boss fight you have to fight. If you side with her, you get an easy fight against Futomimi, but if you side against her, you do a harder fight against the Archangels. Since this is a challenge run, I refuse to take the easy way out since only the morally incorrect players would fight Futomimi. Now, the angels can take physical damage, thank God. However, the number 1 angel you want to take out first is Raphael, since he can put up a Tetra card. And needless to say, magic is not ideal. So once we finally get a turn where we can use physical attacks, we defeat Raphael first, Gabriel second, and Uriel third. Uriel at first seems like he was going to be threatening after using 1 Beast Eye, but he lost those press turns after getting repelled back by Giri. So aside from Raphael being annoying, this fight was not too bad. Sadly, Futomimi dies and Chiaki awakens to her god Baal Avatar. Don't worry, Futomimi, we will avenge you and end this senseless violence. Anyway, let's do some senseless violence against the 4th Oni in Ikebukuro Tunnel. We tell him that we killed his FWBs and we fight him during a full moon. And not because of Bright Might, but because he will replicate into 4 different forms. Hitting the wrong one makes you lose 2 press turns, but thanks to a full moon, we just have to look for a shadow underneath the real one, and Bright Might the shit out of him. We dodge his attack and then keep Bright Mighting him and actually end the fight much faster than I expected in 3 turns, and without taking damage. Wow, I guess we were too over-leveled for this fight or something. With the 4 Onis in BDSM heaven, we make our way to another station where... Nice try, Trumpeter. I ain't fighting you. Never mind, I'm fighting you. Sadly, I lost this fight because, despite preparing for the possibility I had to fight him, I had a Magatama on Demi-Fiend that made him weak to electricity, ending that attempt. But really, I just want to make my way to the diet building first before fighting him. Never mind, I'm fighting him again because Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne was made by people who can't take no for an answer. Now, for the most part, we fight Trumpeter by simply bright mighting the heck out of him. But the thing is, Trumpeter has two unique moves he uses every 4 turns. The first is Evil Melody, which activates 4 turns into the fight and will insta-kill whoever has the lowest HP by percentage, although Trumpeter will not be affected by this move. The other move on his 8th turn is called Holy Melody, and this move fully restores whoever has the lowest health by percentage. So if you fully heal everybody before turn 8, Trumpeter will fully heal himself, resetting the fight. Now I do sadly waste some bead chains here after figuring this strategy out, but I was not concerned about resetting the fight. Instead, I just gradually healed and punched him, and once Red Rider was dead, I revived him with a revival bead but kept Red Rider in the backlines till the 7th turn, only fighting Trumpeter with Giri and Albion. And then, I put Red Rider back in the front lines but don't fully heal him. So once Trumpeter went for Holy Melody, it fully heals Red Rider. So I can just easily punch Trumpeter, and what made the ending of this fight hilarious is that Trumpeter killed himself trying to toot at Giri. Nice. So, with the final fiend defeated, we still have one more fiend left to go. But first, we give the soul down in the subway a demon we're not using, which will become important for an optional Magatama. And now, we gotta go through another boring as hell tunnel, and this is probably even longer and more boring than the first two. Not much to say about this area other than it sucks, it's boring, and we replace Null Fire with Fire Drain, which will become one of the endgame skills. And we reach the diet building with no game overs. In the meantime, we get ourselves a team of Drain Fire and Null Physical demons, included Throne, who is the #1 demon we have to evolve to get one of the endgame passive skills for the final boss fight. And thanks to our affinities, Cert is doable, but still very challenging. And what makes Cert so unique of a demon is that his basic attack is a strength-based fire attack. So when we hit him with a physical attack, he will retaliate, but if he does this on Demi-Fiend or Throne, they will take no damage since they drain fire. There were tough moments and close calls, but we managed to beat Cert on our first attempt. Now before continuing on with the diet building, I want to do a couple optional boss fights first. And the next optional boss fight is Black Frost at the Kabukicho prison. And man, I know he's supposed to be evil, but look at him. He is so cute. Now this cutie can attack with physical, heavy ice, or an insta-kill dark attack. Needless to say, use a Null Dark Magatama here if you don't want to die. I lost Throne and Albion first turn, so I added Giri and Legion in since they Null Dark, but also conveniently have Null Ice too. Now, what sucks is that, while we can use physical Bright Mites here, Black Frost resists physical damage by 90%, similar to that of Kinky. So this was a pretty long fight, especially considering that he can heal himself with Diorama. So I just had to Bright Mite him with my demons, heal with Demi-Fiend, or throw Mazan Rock since Black Frost is neutral to force attacks. Black Frost was on the slightly annoying side, but he was thankfully easy and only took 10 minutes to beat. We obtained the Satan Magatama and then returned back to that soul in the subway where we get ourselves the Command Stone. With the Command Stone, we can open the door to this temple outside near Asakusa Station. Here, we do an optional boss fight against Bishamatan. His main attacks are fire and physical, so having Throne in the fight is a good idea. His main weakness is ice, so throw Mabufa Rocks with Demi-Fiend first turn and Bright Might critical the heck out of him with your demons. His most devastating attack is a focus AoE physical attack, but thankfully it's not enough to kill everybody, so a simple Beat of Life or B-Chain is enough to recover from the damage taken. Thankfully, we ended the fight in 4 turns, and while that fight was easy, this is not the last time we will see a Bishamatan. For now, we get ourselves the Gandari Magatama and do some progression and grinding in the diet building to eventually get level 69 with Demi-Fiend. Nice. Here, we not only max out our agility stat, but we also replace Retaliate with Avenge. the best counter skill that does heavy physical damage and will be an endgame skill. But since we reached level 69, we also fuse ourselves in Abaddon. And with a Matama fusion, we can get Fire Boost onto him. This demon is essential to evolve, as his evolution will give us a higher level Tyrant demon above Cert, who we can fuse with an Element demon to get Cert. And Cert is a demon we need as soon as possible. Now that we have all of that, we finally make the decision to complete the second half of the third Kalpa after fully exploring the strength, magic, and luck sides of the Kalpa. Something that no normal player or veteran player would ever do. But the reason why I did this is because we have a fight against Dante, who was angry he never found out how the devil makes wine. We play this game with him where we have to flip switches and run away from him as he shoots at us. Getting caught by him will cause him to attack us and reset the switches that we activated. This part is not hard by any means, just a little anxiety inducing. But once we get through his game, we have to fight him as a boss fight. Now if we die here, we have to go through the entirety of the third Kalpa and do that stupid chase game again, and that's why I saved Dante for much later when I'm confident we can beat him first try, because I seriously don't want to do all that all over again. Remember, I'm playing this on Steam, so there's no save stating. Now, 3 of his possible attacks are electric, force, and physical. So having Red Rider with null electric and null force, and Albion with the passive skill to drain physical is a way to eat up Dante's press turns. And for the most part, we just right by Dante and heal with Demi-Fiend. Thankfully, we end the fight in 5 turns thanks to our nullifications against his force attacks and a bench for that extra damage. With Dante defeated, we obtain another menorah and gain access to the 4th Kalpa. Or at least before the door to fast travel to the entrance, as we need to beat Mother Harlot for that last menorah. And yeah, until we get a certain demon in our party to fight her, we're better off just continuing on with the main story for now. But on our way out, we return to one of the rooms in the 3rd Kalpa, which spawns Black Frost, who joins our party without our consent. And honestly, he doesn't need it. He has no passive skills as of now, but we can use Matama fusions to get passive skills onto him, and while I personally don't use him that much in this run, he is required to open up one of the optional doors in the 5th Kalpa. Anyway, we continue on with the diet building, with Mata being our next boss fight, and I was going into this fight expected to just bright might him to death, but apparently he's another boss fight who drains physical attacks. Great! So we just gotta take down this guy using Demi-Fiend and Mizan rocks. Oh, and I also entered this fight without a single bead chain, so I can't heal the full party. At best, I could heal 1 party member per turn, or hope that Mata physically attacks Albion for a free heal. But he can also cause panic on our team, so hopefully Demi-Fiend can use Sacred Water to cure the ailment without having to give into panic. There is one moment where he summons a Pazuzu, but this works to our advantage as we can use a Mabufu to exploit his weakness while damaging both of them. Sadly, I do get demon deaths, and while I was able to complete this fight on my first try, I didn't have a Abaddon in my party who I wanted to level up, so I just lived with the loss and carried on. After clearing a pathway to the next boss fight, we exploit the lucky ticket system, but this time not to get Incense, but to get free bead chains. In this game, there's 3 reliable ways of grinding for bead chains. One is by getting it through the Lucky Find passive in the overworld, although that's entirely random and based on chance. The second is to purchase them from Rake's Jewelry with 3 Aquamarines, which we can sometimes get from random encounters or within the 3rd Kalpa Tunnel minigame. But the most reliable way is by choosing the pink small box for a chance of getting bead chains. The 2 best items to get is a Soma, which pretty much acts like a bead for us in this run, or a bead chain to fully recover HP. But on a very, very, very rare occasion, it's actually possible to get Bead of Lights from a pink chest too. So rare that a lot of websites don't even state this as a possible reward. Bead of Lives are essentially an all-party Soma item, but to us, it's essentially a shiny bead chain. With us finding a reliable way to farm bead chains, we attempt the next fight against Mott. And considering how easy a lot of the past fights went, I'm sure this is going to be a very easy boss. Oh my god! Yeah, this guy is a major difficulty spike, and we pretty much have all of our stats maxed except for luck. Now you might be thinking that the problem is Mott's ability to spam B-Side whenever he wants, right? Well, surprisingly no. I mean, it was a reason it ended at least 2 of my attempts, and at most he spammed B-Side at least 5 times in one of my attempts, but on most attempts he doesn't even go for it as much. So what makes Mott so difficult? Makakaja and Megidolion. Now, if he has at least 2 Makakaja buffs and attacks with Megidolion twice, I'm dead. And if he uses Megidolion twice even without buffs, some of my demons under 700 HP die, and throughout all of my attempts, none of my party members or Demi-Fiend has ever dodged Megidolion once. Now, one solution could be to use Matama fusions to max out the strength and vitality so my demons can endure the most amount of damage taken and do the most amount of damage, right? Well, I mean, it helps, but here's the problem. While attacking Mott with Bright Might Physical is a valid option, Mott resists physical attacks by 90% similar to the Black Frost fight, but unlike Black Frost, Mott can counter us with Avenge, the strongest counterattack in the game, and while this is no big deal for demons like Albion and Giri-Girimehkala, I can attack with Abaddon, the number 1 demon who I want to level up with a 50% chance of him losing almost all of his HP. Now, as for Demi-Fiend, he can attack by throwing Mazeo rocks, since Mott is actually weak to electric. There's a rare chance he might get shocked, which makes it safe for Abaddon to attack without the fear of Avenge triggering, but it's incredibly rare to happen. And while I had to grind up some Dakaja rocks to negate Mott's magic buffs and B-chain so I can fully heal every turn, Mott has no consistent pattern. This fight is 100% RNG, and the RNG gods are heavily against us. Now, the one saving grace is Mott's Tempest attack, which Giri can repel for a lot of damage and eat up all the press turns. But Mott unfortunately will not go for Tempest as much as his other skills. So, after losing this fight too many times, I decided to put Mott on the back burner with Mother Harlot while I deal with the only possible optional boss fight we can fight at the moment. And yeah, that's what I look like. Sorry to disappoint you if you thought I was some Japanese girl or something. After maxing out my demon's strength stat by fusing them with our Matama multiple times, we go to a summoning for Mara in Shibuya, and I'm sorry if you love the PlayStation 2 version somehow better than the HD remaster, but the dialogue change in this cutscene automatically makes the HD version superior in every way possible.
Well, you know what? We're about to hit him with the longest, strongest, wrongest demon of them all!
I don't know the details, but they say this guy is an absolute unit. And if Mara really is that magnificent, then hurry up and whip him out already!
Clearly you two are first-timers. Do you not know that summoning is a consummate act of patience? Were we to rouse him prematurely, he would not be able to come—
Hey, you! Half-naked demon dude! Back us up, bro! Tell Goatface here to summon Mara and give us a ride on the gravy train!
Oh. Oh. Well, in my rush, I have summoned Mara the Magnificent in the incomplete body of a Tom.
It's hideous!
So, what makes Mara a unique challenge is that if you give him a beating, he will fully heal himself with Dio Rahan, so your two options to finish him is to let him run out of MP so he can't heal, or buff your attack and debuff his defense to penetrate more than 2,300 HP in one turn. One option sounds unfun, and the other option is illegal for this challenge run. So we start by having Mara blow a Hades Blast all over us, which Giri repels 510 damage and Demi-Fiend avenges with 427 damage. I then just give Mara a good beating under the fully exposed moon, right down to Abaddon going all down with his mouth, resulting in a rushed climax. Yeah, never got to see him heal once. Mara was finished that quick. I guess you could say, Mara was not that hard. With all possible optional boss fights out of the way for now, we have to grind. And when I say grind, I mean challenge run becomes less fun to do because we have to grind to get past the obstacles we're at type of grind. We grinded for almost 5 hours straight, and sadly, we are only gaining around 300 EXP regardless of where we grind. So for the sake of not dying, I found that Asakusa is the safest place to grind EXP, with the biggest annoyance being that there's 2 possible enemies who null physical and are weak to fire. So I had to grind lots of Maka from the 3rd Kalpa tunnel just to get the Maka I needed to purchase the Miragi rocks. Now thankfully there is one easy trick to speed up the grinding, and it's with an item that almost nobody uses. The Attract Pipe. You can get a good amount of them with common gems from Rake's jewelry, and upon using the Attract Pipe during a new moon, we could do like 3 or 4 battles per moon phase, and when we defeat an enemy encounter, there's a good chance that reinforcements will appear right after the enemies you defeated, and since these new encounters will always give the player the initiative, it's very easy to not die to these constant enemy spawns, and we can end with more than 1k worth of experience. Now, as I do the grind, I grind with not just the demons I plan to use for the fight against Mod and Mother Harlot, but also get 3 specific demons to evolve through leveling up. I don't care about the proper name pronunciation, so zip it, you religious fans. Once we get her up to level 69, we can evolve her into Scotty. Leveling Throne to level 68 will evolve him into Uriel, who is one of the demons required to get a crucial endgame skill on our demons, and Abaddon, who as I mentioned before, needs to level up to 74 to evolve him into ACL, and one of the skills that Abaddon learns is Repel Ice, which we will definitely need to cover Cert's weakness. So after hours and hours of grinding in Asakusa with Attract Pipes, using medicines to heal in between battles, and using the shop to buy medicines back while also getting the lucky tickets to get more bead chains, we finally get ACL. And if we fuse them with an element demon, we can get ourselves everyone's favorite naked flame boy demon, Cert. Yes. Okay, no accidental fusion please, no accidental fusion. Accidental fusion happened! Oh my god. I cursed it, guys. I freaking cursed it. Okay, we gotta reset. So, after fusing Cert, I Aramatama fusioned the heck out of him to max out his strength stat, and here is where I can show you what makes Cert so unique of a demon. We re-attempt the fight against Mother Harlot, and while Demi-Fiend can attack her with rocks, Cert can also attack her with his basic attack, doing over 500 damage, which is more than the amount she recovers with her Beast Roar ability. As mentioned before, this works because Cert's basic attack is a fire attack and not a physical attack, and it uses the strength stat instead of the magic stat, meaning it's the only magical damage we can do that actually gets better with leveling up. And by having Cert fused with the Fire Boost passive, we also increase his fire damage by 50%, making him the strongest basic attacking demon in the game. Cert's basic attack can also be affected by counter skills, focus, tetrakarn, and pierce. So contrary to the description of these skills, they affect strength-based skills and not physical attacks. But yeah, thanks to our proud dick missing demon, Cert made the Mother Harlot fight look like the joke it usually is in a normal run. With the penultimate fiend defeated, we have defeated all fiends in the game, allowing us access to the 4th Kalpa and a fusion of Mother Harlot herself under a half moon. And with her crazy amount of resistances, including Repel Physical, she's gonna carry us through a good chunk of the run. Anyway, we go after Mod again, and after restarting because my brain farted using a Mazan and Miragi Rock instead of Mazio, that's when I realized one flaw with my plan. Cert is useless in this fight because Mott nullifies fire attacks. So I had to stick with Giri and Mother Harlot who repel physical attacks, and Scotty who I fused with a drain physical passive so that way I can have all my demons do chip damage at the boss without the fear of losing HP from Avenge. Demi-Fiend attacks only with Mazil rocks and heals with bead chains, and thankfully with us having better demons and better stats, this fight went a lot more smooth than last time. We still lost a lot of HP, but whenever Mott went for Tempest, only Demi-Fiend would get hurt at most, and we would have 2 demons to repel the physical damage, which does far more damage than our basic attack. So I keep going at this until we, once and for all, put Mott in the grave. I hope you don't rest in peace, Mott. You have caused me so much trouble. And now, we can finally continue on with the main story. Next fight is Mitra, and here's how you win the fight. Use a Tetraja rock, and you can win this fight without taking damage. Now we reach the summoning of Hikawa's god, and here we have to fight Samael, but only if you choose to interrupt the summoning. If you choose not to interrupt it, you can skip this fight, but since this is a challenge run and I'm not going for his ending, we choose to fight Samael. Now what makes Samael an interesting fight is that his main move is God's Curse. This move can inflict a number of ailments on you, so to null the one that makes you throw your Mako away, I equipped the null Mind Magatama. Now here we can just attack with Bright Might criticals, and while Samael does use Retaliate, at least it's not as damaging as Mott's Avenge, and both Mother Harlot and Giri can null it. Thankfully Cert and Mother Harlot nullify all ailments, so you really only have to worry about Demi-Fiend and Giri being inflicted, and every single time he cast ailments on us, Giri was always being charmed for whatever reason. Hey, whatever floats your trunk, Giri. And honestly, there's not much to say about this fight. While Samael can attack with Megidola or Megidolan, he mostly spends his turns buffing his defense even though he's fully buffed. So we keep the damage up, heal ailments, and use B-Chains with Demi-Fiend, and Samael was honestly very easy. With one more reason rejected, Hikawa kills our teacher and summons his god, Ahriman. Now from here, the next dungeon is going to be the Tower of Kagetsuchi, but once you enter that dungeon, you will be locked into an ending, making the true demon ending unobtainable. So until then, we need to complete the entirety of the Labyrinth of Amala first. But before I start doing the 4th Kalpa, I grind for a long time in the 3rd Kalpa Tunnels minigame till I can purchase the Vimana Magatama from the Collector Mannequin, and the first skill we can learn is Endure, an endgame skill that we must have if we want a chance against the remaining boss fights in this game. Sadly, there's no Endurance Soul skill in this game like there is in later installments, but with Endure being able to save us from death at 1 HP, which will save us from a fatal attack or an insta-kill once per battle, this will definitely help us get through the rest of the game. And out of all the passive skills, I chose to give up Fire Boost since Cert is going to be my main fire damage dealer and has already been doing far better fire damage than me anyway. We will keep the other 3 boost skills on Demi-Fiend till we defeat some of the later boss fights, but with Endure on us, we headed to the 4th Kalpa, and once we enter, we realize a damageless run of this game would be 100% impossible if you're going for the true demon ending. So we make our way to Hell's Hall where we have to fight the Lord of the Flies himself, Beelzebub. Just make sure you're fully healed before you enter the door and have demons with Null Dark on you and equip the Null Dark Magatama. Beelzebub's signature move is Death Flies. It's an almighty attack with a high chance of Dark insta-kill, so this is why you want to nullify Dark. His other attacks are an AoE Force Attack, Electric Attack, and Megidolan. But if our demons already null or drain it, we can endure the Force and Electric attacks no problem. Now Beelzebub has a resistance to physical damage, so all of us won't be doing the most amount of damage. Cert, however, is a monster in this fight because thankfully Beelzebub is neutral to fire attacks. Since Cert naturally nulls Dark, can learn Drain Elect at level 75, and do the most amount of damage with his basic attack with Fire Boost and Bright Might on top of that, Cert completely dominated Beelzebub, and this fight was honestly easy. With the fly swatted, all cursed corridors are no longer cursed. And if we proceed to the lower floor, we are blocked from exiting the 4th Kalpa till we flip a switch on the other side. So, how do we reach that switch? Oh, it's easy. Talk to Mothman in Hell's Hall. Exit the third Kalpa. Go down to the second Kalpa. Revisit Ifrit in the no longer cursed corner of the second Kalpa. Exit the second Kalpa. Travel to Ginza. Tell Loki the Marvel films haven't gotten any better. Travel to Asakusa. Get the star key from the collector mannequin. Travel back to the Labyrinth of Amala. Enter the third Kalpa. Go through the star door onto floor 2. Go down the tunnel to the fourth Kalpa. Flip the switch. Go back up to the third Kalpa. Get out of the third Kalpa. Go back to the fourth Kalpa. Reach the second floor. And we can finally make it to the end of the fourth Kalpa. Because Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne was programmed by people who thought they knew how to make video games. Anyway, we can gain immediate access to the fifth Kalpa where we run into Dante again. He is annoyed that he can't figure out how the devil makes wine, so we hire him as a party member. But we have to pay him on a coin toss. If we lose half of our Maka. If we win, we only have to pay him 1 Maka. He takes the Harvey Dent approach by having a 2-sided coin, so pick heads and your wallet will thank you for it. Now, despite Dante having no story purpose from this point on, Dante is a unique party member that knows all light, dark, and ailment attacks, and resists all physical and magical attacks, making him a very endurable party member. When it comes to passives, he will automatically have the Never Yield passive, which is essentially his version of Endure, and his only other passive skill is Sun's Oath, a skill that boosts his attack damage by 50%, but also gives him a Pierce effect which he can ignore all physical resistances, null, drain, but sadly not repel. And this is actually one of the major differences between the PlayStation 2 and HD versions of Maniacs. Sun's Oath originally boosted your attacks by 50%, but without the Pierce effect, whereas if you played the Chronicles version of the game, Raido's version of the skill Raido the Eternal did come with the Pierce effect. So they just updated the Maniacs version for the HD remaster to give Dante a Pierce effect also. While some of you might argue that this inclusion invalidates the run because Dante couldn't learn Pierce in the original Maniacs version, you're free to try the run for yourself on the PlayStation 2 and your tears will be my satisfaction. For now at least, we won't have access to Sun's Oath till level 83, so hopefully we won't be needing it anytime soon. So I go to the Amala Temple and get Kagetsuchi so excited for creation that he erects his tower into the earth, and the old lady's little master warns me that if I don't complete the Labyrinth of Amala before entering the tower, then Lucifer will steal my pants next. The only ass we want to see throughout this run is Surt's ass, so let's do what Lucifer wants and go do the fifth Kalpa. The fifth Kalpa has the gimmick similar to the third Kalpa where you go through stat check doors, but this time it checks the stats on your demons. In general, you want most of your demons with stats above 25, but there's actually a simple way around this. By going through only one strength check door, we reach a door that tells us to present a demon who's been with us the longest, which in this case would be Queen Mab since she's within Pixie's evolution line. We then get our Pixie back, but with her stats at 30 and some OP skills where only Endure can be quote-unquote used. While Pixie won't be a good fighter for this run, she is all you need to get past every stat check door. Although there are 3 other doors with very useful loot in it that requires you to have Beelzebub, Black Frost, and Metatron in your party, but I've used away my Black Frost, so I'll have to check that door some other time. And the one that requires you to have Metatron, who you can only fuse at level 95, is a must for this run since we can find a shady broker who can sell us a Giri-Girimehkala with Pierce as a passive skill, but more on this later. I then try to return back to the surface, only to get a BS insta-kill at full health on my way out. So I went through the fifth Kalpa again, but this time attempted the fight against Metatron. Metatron is the light version of Beelzebub, but on steroids. Since Cert lacks in all light, I go in with Dante, Mother Harlot, and Scotty instead. And just like Beelzebub, Metatron resists all attacks except for ice damage. However, Demi-Fiend's basic attack does a slight bit more damage than throwing a Mabufu Rock with Ice Boost, so we're going all in with physical attacks only. Now, as long as you go in with Null Light on everybody, you can instantly end Metatron's press turns if he uses any light damage or insta-kills. Just like before, we use Bright Might criticals minus Dante and heal with Demi-Fiend. Metatron can attack with Megidolion, and since he also buffs with Tarakaja and Makakaja, you want to pay attention to his buffs and not only heal, but use Takaja rocks to avoid having anyone die in one turn from full health. And for 2 out of 3 phases, it goes mostly smooth. but once he reaches phase 3, Metatron is done playing around. He can cast Fire or Sinai, which don't let the word fire fool you, it's a hard-hitting almighty attack that can hit you once or twice like a truck, and if he's buffed too much, you gotta negate those buffs with Dekaja rocks and end your turn with everyone fully healed. But what makes Metatron a pain in the ass is Debilitate. Oh my god, this couldn't be a more fitting name for a spell. This move really screws up the fight for us. Not only are we doing less damage and taking more damage the more he applies it onto us, but we will be missing our attacks more often, making it go the opposite of smooth like it was in the first 2 phases. And remember, we have no way of negating debuffs since Atlas did not program a Dakuda rock in this game, because Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne was made by people who saw challenge runs coming and wanted to make sure that us challenge runners suffer. Unfortunately, our efforts come to an end after 2 debilitates when he obliterates my team after 1 Makakaja buff and 1 Fire Sinai at full health. And mind you, Demi-Fiend is at max agility, and the worst part about losing to Metatron is that it takes a really long time to retry the fight, as you gotta go through the entire 5th Kalpa again just to retry the fight, and I seriously don't want to do that again if my next attempt is gonna end in vain. So, what can I do? Well, even if we have max vitality, we can still increase Demi-Fiend's HP by leveling up and replacing his life gain passive with Life Surge from the Vimanama Gatama. Mother Harlot and Scotty can just level up while also having their vitality max through Matama fusions. But as for Dante, this is where having Dante as a party member becomes very annoying. Despite being able to register him in the Demon Compendium, you can't pull him out of the Compendium, even on New Game Plus, so you can't fuse him or upgrade him with Matama fusions. So the only way to increase Dante's stats is by leveling up, or grinding for more Incense via the Lucky Ticket system. Hooray! So you know what that means. Yep, more hours of grinding. This time with the intent to get Life Surge on Demi-Fiend to skyrocket his HP over 900, and to level Dante to level 83 so he can learn his son's Oath passive, being able to increase his damage by 50% while also piercing through Metatron's resistance to physical, and by prioritizing Strength, Vitality, and Agility Incense, Dante should hopefully carry us through Metatron. And since we have access to the 5th Kalpa, I can also do a bit of grinding by using the Attract Pipe just after the room I recruit Dante in, and thankfully I do gain over 1000 EXP here. It may sound like overkill, but even in a normal run on hard difficulty, grinding to this high of a level is required for the final boss fights anyway, so this is a must regardless. And after 7 hours of repetitive grinding for just a few levels, we finally get Dante's Sun's Oath ability. The only downside is that I couldn't get his HP above 700, and the RNG gods were either giving me crap rewards from the Lucky Ticket system or favoring Agility Incense over Vitality Incense, so his low HP may be a detriment since he's unable to learn Life Gain or Life Surge. I gotta say, this grinding fucking sucks, and it felt mentally draining. Well, even if I didn't feel like Dante was prepared, I still went into the Metatron fight to see how it goes, and yeah, Dante's Sun's Oath ability makes a huge difference. While Mother Harlot and Scotty can give us extra press turns thanks to Bright Might, Dante will inflict the most amount of damage, and just like the last attempt, the first 2 phases go mostly smooth, as long as I pay attention to Metatron's buffs and know when to throw it to Kaja Rock. And then we reach phase 3, Debilitate 1. I start missing more often, but thankfully Dante is still doing over 300 damage. After 1 Makakaja buff and 1 strong hidden Fire or Sinai, it triggers Dante's Endure already. He lands a second Debilitate, which means we're missing more often and Dante is doing less than 300 damage. And if I need to do a heal and throw it to Kaja Rock, skipping turns is a valid option, as attack it is too much of a gamble if we lose 2 press turns because of it. So I usually pass the turns on the girls and attack with Dante, and then he hits us with a 3rd Debilitate. Hoo boy. So now we're missing more often, doing less damage, and taking more damage with no way to negate it. And yeah, Dante is doing only a little over 200 damage now. But on the bright side, Metatron is in his low health animation, so I know we are getting closer to the end. Unfortunately, one fire of Sinai is enough to kill Dante. Yeah, the one time I could really use Vitality Incense, my best attacker goes down, and Metatron's damage is getting so dangerous that we're nearly dying. But here's the thing, death in this game is more of a suggestion than it is a final destination, and this can work to our advantage. Once we revive Dante and bring him back into the party, his stats are back to neutral and are no longer debuffed. So now we can go back to doing more damage without that high chance of missing. This fight took some RNG, Dekaja rocks, lots of bead chains, and the death of the Devil Hunter, but thanks to our Devil Hunter, Metatron falls.
Yes! We did it! Bye, Metatron! Bye-bye! I have never been so happy to kill one of God's angels in my entire life.
We then go through the tutorial area again, where we die to some regular hits from 2 Kadamas. Just kidding, just kidding. We go down the elevator and Lucifer tells us the plan to overthrow Warner Brothers, and we end up sacrificing the rest of our humanity to become a true demon of chaos. And with that, we are locked into the true demon ending. And now, there is no turning back. Hey everybody, so NitsaGamer here for a quick intermission, so if you're enjoying this run, be sure to give it a like, comment, and subscribe, and ding the bell for more NitsaGamer content. I hope you're enjoying this run as much as I mostly enjoyed playing this run, so with that said, let's get into the final dungeon of the game. With our own reason chosen, we ascend a tower because Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne was made by a company who has a fetish for ascending towers in their video games for whatever reason. And here, we need to beat all 3 reason boss fights and collect their stones before we can face off against Kagetsuchi himself, starting with the god of tentacle porn, Ahriman. So Ahriman's first phase starts off with a gimmick of restricting certain moves, and if you perform that forbidden move, you get insta-killed. While physical attacks are forbidden, I just throw Mazon rocks. Once I can go for physical, I go all out with Bright Might criticals. It does get a bit scary when he bans items, since items are my only way of healing, but thankfully he advances to phase 2 here instead of attacking. Now, Ahriman in a normal run is usually a joke because if you put on buffs and debuffs before his second phase, you can breeze through most of the second phase no problem, even if he does come with Dakuda and Dekaja. But since this challenge run is also a no buffs and debuffs run, we just gotta hope that we can survive. Tentacle can do some bad physical damage, but thankfully with Mother Harlot repellent physical, we can do indirect damage while eating up his press turns. But the most devastating attack is Apocalypse, which does massive almighty damage. Thankfully, only Dante hits his Endure, but then he does a basic attack on Demi-Fiend, hitting his Endure. Whenever it's our turn, I pass with Demi-Fiend to get a half press turn, attack with Bright Might criticals, and heal using B-chains we raid from the Lucky Ticket system. 5 turns later, Dante dies, so I just summon Scotty in his place. And thanks to us attacking under a full moon, we show Hikawa the bright side of not staying still by punching him to death to make him stay still. Not gonna lie, that was a lot easier than I expected. 1 reason rejected, 2 more to go. The next reason boss fight is Noah. However, we have the option to skip Noah for now and proceed on to the third part of Kagetsuchi's tower. Here, we can reach our final main terminal where we have what is essentially a town for the mannequins. It has a shop, fountain, Cathedral of Shadows, and this shop is the next best place to get elemental rocks, and here we can get the last Magatama of the game, which, oh my god! Yeah, the Kailash Magatama is nearly 500,000 Maka. To put this in perspective how ridiculous this price is, this Magatama only costs 150,000 Maka on normal difficulty, and here we are expected by Atlas to just pony up the dough. Next thing you know, they're probably going to charge us over 90 bucks just to buy a game. But for now, we're going to worry about that for later and focus on Noah. Now for the first phase, we can Bright Might critical the heck out of Noah, but only for the first turn. Afterwards, he will use Aurora, which will make him repel every single attack except for one elemental affinity, and that element will be the opposite of whatever element he attacks with. Thankfully, it's the same pattern. He is neutral to ice first, fire second, force third, and electric fourth, and then cycles back to ice. This is a boss fight that not only requires you to pay attention throughout the whole fight, but it's arguably the longest and most annoying reason boss fight since it's designed around magic build demons. And while it is possible to use Pierce and Freikugel with Demi-Fiend, or Sun's Oath and Stainer with Dante to do a lot more damage since both attacks are strength-based almighty attacks, obviously using those skills are banned for this run. And any Megidola rocks that we have is magic based and cannot pierce, because while Noah doesn't have a null almighty, he has a 90% damage resistance to almighty, so sadly, throwing elemental rocks at him and using Surt's basic attack with Bright Might when Noah is neutral to fire is the only efficient way to go. And because Surt is going 4th on my team due to his lower agility stat that I can't raise up with Matama fusions for whatever stupid reason, I have to always pass Demi-Fiend's first turn to guarantee that Surt acts twice when Noah is neutral to fire. On average, Surt does a little over 550 damage, while Demi-Fiend chips around 100 damage, which, yeah, really shows you how worse our magical damage has become over the course of leveling up. Meanwhile, my other demons only exist to pass their turns and potentially eat up Noah's press turns, so make sure you have demons with 2 or 3 nullifications to elemental attacks, or whatever attacks Surt doesn't nullify at the least. In the first phase, Noah can attack with strength-based almighty attacks, and any counter skills, even with the Pierce passive, does no damage, but Noah mainly attacks with elemental magic, damaging singular targets with his first phase and using AoE magic during his second phase, where, can I say, I love how Noah keeps Isamu's hat. It's pretty darn funny seeing that. Now, this seems all pretty straightforward. Just attack with Surt when he's neutral to fire, do chip damage with Demi-Fiend or heal when necessary, so what's the issue? The issue is that Noah is a goddamn asshole, because his signature move, Domination, is an undodgeable almighty attack that massively drains our HP and MP away while healing himself in the process. This is essentially meditation on steroids, and the worst part is, it's entirely RNG whether or not Noah attacks us with an elemental attack, a basic attack, or domination. And because we're doing mostly chip damage and doing like 1100 damage per 4 turns with Surt alone, if Noah chooses to use this move twice or even 3 times in a row, he is healing himself more than we are doing damage to him. And yeah, progress was not being made and his low health animation was nowhere in sight. So because of that, the first attempt is a bust. And what makes this so frustrating is that there's only 4 ways to make this fight doable. We could lower the difficulty to normal so Noah drains less HP away, or use debuffs like Warcry to reduce the HP drained, but both options violates the rules of the run. The only 2 valid options is to get better demons with nullifications to all 4 elemental attacks, and grind Surt since Surt's basic damage scales with level. And while yes, Demi-Fiend's magical damage does get worse with leveling up, it's not a massive loss if we're gaining more damage points with Surt. And until I can beat Noah, I need to keep the remaining 3 elemental boost skills on Demi-Fiend till the fight is won. So sadly, I have to put Noah and that eventual Pierce skill for Demi-Fiend on the back burner for now. So at this point, we need to grind a lot of EXP, and grind for nearly 1,000,000 Maka so we can get the last 2 remaining Magatamas from the junk shops. But how are we going to do that without spending way too many hours grinding for Maka in the tunnel minigame? Well, simple. We gotta grind for less than an hour in the tunnel that offers us the most amount of Maka. So, which tunnel is that, you may ask? Well, by going into the 4th Kalpa and entering an area called Hell's Vault, we can find a tunnel where we can grind Maka in. While this is arguably the most challenging tunnel to dodge bubbles, we can gain over 43,000 Maka in one trip. So you bet your ass I spent a long time trying to master this minigame, grinding for as much Maka as possible to get the remaining 2 Magatamas from the junk shops. After 45 minutes, I grinded to the point that I had over 1 million Maka. Now hopefully you can make it back to the entrance without wasting that progress getting a game over, and from there we can buy the Sophia Magatama from the Collector Mannequin and the Kailash Magatama from Kagasuchi's Tower. With all 24 Magatamas collected, we can obtain the Lord Sword from Master Mido, which we can use on Masakato's grave to enter an optional dungeon called the Bandu Shrine. Similar to the BDSM Onis, we have 4 optional boss fights against the Heavenly Canes that we must defeat to get the best Magatama in the game. Whatever you do, save the one through the red shrine for last and fight the other 3 through the yellow shrine first. Trust me. What can't be trusted, however, is GameMate's guide on this dungeon. Sorry GameMate, but you deserve some hardcore cancel culture for fucking up the placements of the Heavenly Canes. I went to the West Pillar with the intent to fight Zuzuten, but instead, I got Kamukuten. And what makes this such a serious fuck up is that while I went in with the Repel Elect Magatama, I also made myself weak to Force. But since the internet, aka GameMate, insists on giving the wrong information for laughs, I didn't have electricity to worry about. I had mostly physical attacks to worry about. Ku mostly buffs and debuffs defenses and throws physical attacks and the occasional force attacks. Oh, I see what you did there, GameMate, ha 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 ha. Thank God Scotty has a force repel passive on her, so the strat I used to get through this fight was just to put up attack mirrors to repel the physical damage back, use Mazio rocks during Demi-Fiend's turn, bright my criticals with everyone else, use a Takaja rock or two to negate the defense buffs. And thankfully, the second hardest Heavenly Cane can be beaten on hard difficulty without using skills, even if you are weak to his force attacks. Haha, take that, GameMate! Don't use their guide on this dungeon. The next Heavenly Cane fight is at the Southern Pillar against Zuzuchiten. I know I'm probably mispronouncing their names, but I don't care. Have your entire party with a nullification to electric, and you can beat this guy without taking damage. No, seriously, it's impossible to lose if you have everyone null to electric. We then go to the Eastern Pillar to fight Jik. Have the entire party with a nullification to ice, and you can beat Jik without taking damage. And I did these 3 Heavenly Canes in one go without leaving the dungeon to save. However, you definitely want to leave the dungeon to save before you even attempt the last Heavenly Cane at the Northern Pillar. Here, we fight Bishamatan. You know, the simple fight we fought back in the temple for the Gundari Magatama? Well, this time, he is not only back, but back to be the most brutal optional boss fight in the entire game. Almost every challenge run, especially the solo Demi-Fiend runs, struggle with this guy the most. But what makes him so bad? Well, when I first start, the shaman immediately debilitates us twice. Well, this is a great start. Now, there are 4 possible things that Bishamon can do. 1, he can use 2 press turns to debilitate. 2, he can cast Dragon's Eye and will use 4 turns to completely buff his attack power, followed up with a physical attack. 3, he will cast Dragon's Eye and use 4 Makakajas, followed up with either Megidolion or Prominence, and if he's fully buffed, he can just use those 5 turns just attacking you. During my first attempt, he has us fully debuffed to -4 within the first 3 turns, so goes without saying, we lost the first attempt. Now, on top of needing to heal with Demi-Fiend, we can throw Mabufa rocks during the first press turn to hit a weakness and bright my critical with everyone else, except for Surt. But Shaman repels fire attacks, so even if we have the Pierce passive on Surt, Surt is incapable of attacking in this fight, and therefore is useless outside of eating up the fire attacks. While praying that he uses Prominence is a valid option, it's just as effective as praying cancer away. And once he casts Debilitate, we'll be taking more damage, doing less damage, and missing our attacks more often. Now, while swapping our current demons out for demons who haven't been debuffed is a valid option, I currently don't have enough coverage against the physical and fire attacks to make it doable. And I was being greedy keeping Surt in the party as I wanted to level him up. Don't be a dumbass like me. I knew this fight was definitely possible, I just had to grind till my demons were near or at max HP, but I also need to grind to a high enough level to get through the Noah fight. Problem is, the more you level up a demon, the more EXP you will need to level the demon up depending on how low their initial starting level is. So I realized what I had to do next. I had to grind to level 95. The reason? Well, if you have good knowledge on this game, you should already know. So in order to gain those 8 levels faster, the most efficient and fastest way to grind is to grind in the town area of Kagetsuji's tower while using a track pipe to bring in lots of encounters and reinforcements to me. After more than 5 hours of grinding, we finally reached level 95. Here we have to do a very simple fusion to fuse Metatron, and here's how you do it. Evolve Throne into Uriel. Fuse Dominion and Uriel to get Raphael. Fuse Raphael and Throne to get Gabriel. Fuse Uriel and Raphael while sacrificing Gabriel to get Michael. And then fuse Michael with any Divine or Seraph demon while sacrificing an entire demon to get Metatron. How the fuck did people figure all this shit out without a guide? Anyway, the reason why we want to fuse Metatron is because the door in the 5th Kalpa requests for a demon brimming with light. That demon being Metatron. After going through this simple maze by simply going straight, we can find a shady broker who will sell us a Giri-Girimehkala for 200,000 Maka, and this rebellious elephant comes with 5 passives: Might, Dark Might, Bright Might, Attack All, and Pierce. And this is the only way to get Pierce on your demons, which is a necessity for the true Demon Ending's final boss fight. Or at least when it comes to challenge runs, as you can make do without. Make sure you register this new Giri-Girimehkala to the compendium and take 2 seconds to kiss your previous Giri-Girimehkala goodbye. Here we can fuse Beelzebub, who starts off in his fake form and will eventually evolve into his fly form over time. Just make sure you fuse him with Bright Might, Avenge, Endure, Pierce, and a nullification to Fire and Ice, as the final boss fight can attack with Fire and Ice. But we also need to refuse Cert with the Pierce passive. Our previous certs served us well, but we need a more reliable cert with Pierce, as there's no way to add or change skills outside of what you fuse them with and what they learn through leveling up. And since cert's initial level is 74, the only way to bring them up to our level is through sacrificial fusions, but you gotta make sure that you have no death stones on you, or otherwise you'll just end up fusing Trumpeter. Now, the way that sacrificial fusion works is that your newly fused demon will only gain additional levels if the demon you sacrifice has leveled up beyond their initial starting level. Once I got a fusion chain that will work for my endgame build, I realized that Cert is level 99, which means more grinding! So I do more attract pipe grinding, on top of collecting every remaining chest within the 5th Kalpa, and after 4 hours of this, I finally got to level 99. However, I cannot fuse Cert. Why? Well, counting the amount of additional stats he has 26 extra stats. 74 plus 26 equals 100, which means this Cert is actually level 100. Now for those who are confused, let me explain. When you level up, the game shows the number of levels you are at. However, the max level in Nocturne is not actually 99, it's 255. However, once you go past level 99, the game never shows what level you're actually at past level 99, simply because the game is designed in a way where you shouldn't even need to go past level 95. But even if the numbers don't show, we are actually leveling up no differently than before, because this is the only way that you can actually master all Magatamas in the game, which is actually one of the achievements if you're playing the HD remaster. So we just gotta grind up one more level with Demi-Fiend, and now we can fuse Cert. However, there is one unavoidable problem. Cert only has 5 empty skill slots, and out of all the skills, I definitely want Bright Might for the original final boss fight, Fire Boost for that extra 50% fire damage, Endure to survive a fatal attack once, Avenge as both final boss fights have a strength-based almighty attack that we can counter, and Pierce for the true Demon Ending's final boss fight. What sucks is that this means we will have Cert's weakness to ice fully exposed, as there's no way around this, other than to just give up one of these 5 skills. But these 5 skills are far more crucial to have, so while this new Cert may have a weakness, This is still a new and massively improved Surt who will carry us the rest of this run. But before doing the Noah fight again, we re-attempt the fight against Bishaman, but this time, not playing the game like a dumbass and keeping Surt in the backlines like a good boy. With careful use of Mabufu rocks, bee chains, and demons with avenge and nullifications to fire, except for Metatron who only resists fire, we can make good progress. Thankfully, Bishaman was mostly attacking us with physical and fire, but he did eventually cast Debilitate on us. Once debilitated, we replace Metatron with Vishnu, so that way at least one demon is not debuffed. Thankfully on our next turn, Vishnu won us the fight. So the strategy here is just to have a good amount of demons in your stock with Avenge and Drain Fire, and to replace a demon who has been debilitated. With all the Heavenly Canes defeated, we visit Masakado and make a very unpromising promise to protect Tokyo. No idea what would happen if we say no, but personally I don't want to find out. We then get rewarded the Masakado's Magatama, aka the best Magatama in the game, as we can nullify every single affinity in the game except for almighty attacks. It even has some repel passive skills which may come in handy as a backup if we need them. With all Matamas collected, we have 2 more reasons still left for us to reject. So we attempt the fight against Noah again, this time using the Masakado's Magatama so only the almighty attacks can hurt us, Michael, who nullifies every single elemental attack, and Vishnu, who resists all magical attacks but has an all-force passive. And while our chip damage with elemental rocks does a slight less damage than before, Surt can now do just under 700 damage with critical damage, but regardless of how higher level we are, Noah is draining around 850 HP whenever he goes for domination. But that's when we figured out a reliable strategy, and this strategy requires demons with the Endure passive. Instead of fully healing the whole party with bee chains, I only heal one demon at a time and purposely keep some of them with their health low. For example, since Michael can't take damage from elemental attacks, he can only lose HP from domination, and if Michael has a little bit of HP and Endure is still active, Noah will only drain the amount of HP he has, -1 as Endure triggers, so we have a reliable way of making Noah heal himself for less, and while we can use this strategy with Demi-Fiend and Surt too since they also have Endure, we also don't want them to die for obvious reasons. However, if that Endure has already triggered, instead of draining 1 HP, Noah will drain over 700 HP, and no, that's not because that's Michael's max HP, so I don't know why this number. But with the use of chip damage, a level 101 Surt with Fire Boost and Bright Might, and the Endure exploit to avoid Noah healing himself too much with domination, Noah's low health animation was finally in sight, and it was only a matter of time before we defeat Noah once and for all with a Mazan Rock.
I rejected my friend!
Oy, 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 oy. This fight took over 30 minutes, but you know what? It's better than being stuck with Isamu for the rest of my life. With Noah defeated, we can now start giving up the passive elemental boost skills on Demi-Fiend for some reliable passive skills like Drain Ice and Pierce. We're getting close to the final boss fights, but first, we got 2 mandatory fights to get out of the way. First is Thor. Now, I could have fought this guy a long time ago, but I chose not to until I had my endgame demons with me, and for this fight, I didn't even bother entering it on a full moon, and I just left the game on auto. While some of my demons did take damage, I managed to beat Thor no problem while doing absolutely nothing. Oh, and remember how bad the White Temple puzzle was? Well, we have the same war puzzle here, except it's so bad that I strongly recommend using a guide to get through this horrible excuse of a puzzle, because Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne was made by developers who made Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne. We then reach Ball Avatar, who is our last reason to reject. As long as you have demons with null curse, Ball's Bane has no effect on us. After punching her for 2 turns, she summons 2 furries to join her, Ose Hallel and Floros Hallel. The Hallel part is just as much of a lie as Chiaki being strong. Now Ose will fully heal Ball Avatar with DR Rahan, a skill that both furry men have, So here we have to punch Ose till he's defeated, then do the same thing with Floros, before focusing our attacks entirely on Chiaki. And this recent fight is honestly stupidly easy. Fitting to fit Chiaki's hypocrisy, I suppose, but as long as you have the Masakata's Magatama, you will win. And we're done! One more friend rejected! And there you go, guys. It is indeed possible to beat Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne on hard difficulty without using skills. That is, if you're going for the regular demon ending, as the regular demon ending only requires you to beat the recent boss fights, as it skips the final boss fight against Kagutsuchi entirely. But while one ending may be possible, what we really want to prove is that the other 5 endings are possible too. With the final and easiest recent boss fight defeated, we proceed on to floor 666, and this is it. The last floor before we reject all possibilities of creation. With all 3 stones submitted into the pillars, we can end this run once and for all. The demons that I chose for the endgame are Surt for his Bright Might and 50% boost passive, Dante for his Sun's Oath passive to boost his attack by 50% even though he has no might skill, and Beelzebub for no reason other than he has the best passive skills that I need for the endgame, and he's going to be my best man for my wedding with Surt. But before we reject all creation entirely, we grind an extra level, make sure we're fully healed, and we save with a playtime of over 104 hours, minus the amount of times we had to reset, which is 100 times, no thanks to the mannequins. So, we go fly up to the moon and face Kagutsuchi.
Go, accursed one! I shall never forgive you for causing the death of the world.
Take that, orphans. Take that, patient who beat cancer. Take that, law school graduate. Take that, YouTuber who just finished his 3-hour-long video. So, when we enter the fight against Amano Sagiri's bigger brother, it will automatically be a new moon. Now, the way this fight works is that Kagutsuchi will either attack us with an almighty basic attack, which can be countered with Avenge, or he will use an elemental or magic-based almighty attack. But every turn he advances the moon phases by 2, sometimes 4 phases. Now he'll take the most amount of damage during a new moon, and less during a full moon, though you still want to have Bright Might on Surt and Beelzy when we reach phase 2 of the fight. Now once it's a full moon, we might be able to take advantage of Bright Might criticals, but you also want to make sure that you're fully healed before your turn ends, because the move, Vast Light, will hit you like a truck on steroids, doing around 880 damage. And since none of my demons are above 900 HP, they all lose their Endure. So we will definitely need to grind to have more HP, but let's scout the fight further. After doing 20,000 damage, Kagutsuchi will change from Disco Ball form to Phase form, and the moon phase will be permanently at full, hence why you need Bright Might for this fight. Now, Kagutsuchi can go for an AoE basic attack or elemental, but his signature move, which he triggers a turn after given some dialogue on who he is Infinite Light. And Infinite Light hits us like the fallen moon from Majora's Mask and is impossible to survive on hard difficulty without defense buffs and attack debuffs. Now, most of you shouldn't be surprised by this if you watch Niarli's no buff and debuff run of Nocturne. While we can survive the first Infinite Light with the Endure passive, surviving the second Infinite Light is impossible on hard difficulty without Rakukaja and Warcry. And don't even try banking on agility buffs, as Infinite Light is undodgeable. But since we can't use buffs or debuffs, what do we do? Kagutsuchi has 40,000 HP in his second phase, and we are nowhere near a quarter way of dealing that much damage before he hits us with an Infinite Light, so this run's impossible, right? Well, we do have 2 options. Option 1 is to lower the difficulty to normal so Infinite Light is survivable, or option 2, we can grind to level 255 as physical damage does scale with level, and we can have everybody in the party at max stats and 999 HP without the use of Life Surge passives. Now, our main goal is to beat this game while staying on hard difficulty, but out of curiosity, I made a separate save and went into the fight to see if it was possible on normal difficulty with the current stats we're at. Now on normal difficulty, we do the exact same amount of damage as on hard, but take more survivable attacks. When we finally get to Infinite Light during Kagutsuchi's second phase, it is thankfully survivable, though due to Dante's lower HP, his Endure does get triggered. So thankfully, buffs and debuffs are optional on normal, but you definitely want to have Life Surge on Demi-Fiend and Max Vitality on everyone else. Kagutsuchi will be the ultimate RNG god by either doing an AoE basic attack, an elemental attack, magic-based Megidolion, or boasting about who he is, which indicates he will hit us with an Infinite Light. Dante does get KO'd after the second Infinite Light, so I replace him with Vishnu. Cert and Beelzebub die after the fourth Infinite Light, but thankfully at this point, Kagutsuchi is in his low health animation. I did spend a good chunk of Demi-Fiend's turns using Bombs of Raizen and Bead Chains trying to get my main party back. After 6 Infinite Lights, we finally end the fight, proving that yes, you can beat Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne without using skills on normal difficulty and get 5 out of the 6 endings. But since we're playing on the Maniacs version of the game and are going for the true demon ending, Kagutsuchi is not the final boss fight. After we defeat the moon, time has stopped and the cycle of destruction and creation has stopped, but before I can lead Lucifer's army against the Great Will, I have to prove my strength to him by fighting what is known as the hardest boss in the game, Lucifer. Lucifer has a total HP and MP of 65,535, the highest number the game's engine can hold up to, emphasizing how challenging the fight against the Great Will be. Now, the two things to note about Lucifer is that he resists every single attack in the game, including Almighty. Now, while it is possible to fight him while only inflicting 25% damage, this boss fight is one of the many reasons why a strength build is a must, because the passive skill Pierce bypasses Lucifer's resistance to physical. So, if you choose to give up on the Pierce skill for Demi-Fiend when it becomes available, you are in a world of hurt. Now, since the moon phase is non-existent, Bright Might and Dark Might are ineffective in this fight. This fight is the reason why you want Cert and Dante in a run like this, because they are the only 2 party members in the whole game who can have a 50% damage boost with their basic attack. In terms of Lucifer's attacks, he mainly attacks with almighty attacks, and his basic attack can be the most damaging type of attack as it has an extremely high crit chance. But if we have our demons with the Avenge skill, we can not only counter his basic attack, but also do a lot more damage than our basic attack. Lucifer will also attack with Fire and Ice magic, so covering these attacks with Fire and Ice Drain or Repel will be a huge advantage, hence why I have Demi-Fiend with the Fire and Ice Drain passive. And as the fight goes on, Lucifer will use more aggressive attacks like High Cane and Root of Evil, which has random negative effects. And honestly, there's not too much new I can say about this fight in a run like this if you're playing on normal difficulty, because I managed to beat Lucifer on the first try. Meaning, yes, you can beat Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne without using skills and getting the true demon ending on normal difficulty. And this is without needing to grind to level 255 or anything above level 95. And while I have no doubt that normal difficulty will still be grindy, I say this run is far more ideal to beat on normal over hard. But now, the main question we have left is both Kagutsuchi and Lucifer possible to beat on hard difficulty without using skills? Well, let's look at Kagutsuchi. Now, it took 6 Infinite Lights to defeat him, but some of the reason is due to us needing to heal and revive between turns and my party members not being at or near max HP. However, for this to be possible on hard, we need to get through Phase 1 and any attacks during Phase 2 without triggering anyone's Endure, and while we can survive the first Infinite Light thanks to Endure, we must beat Kagutsuchi before he hits us with a second Infinite Light. And while the attempt on normal may show that this idea is impossible, remember, we are only a little ways over 100 and some of my demons are under level 100. We can grind to as high as level 255, and since physical damage scales with level, that means, yes, we must grind to level 255 with not just 1, but 4 demons so they can output the most amount of physical damage. Now, grinding to level 255 is really not ideal, as grinding up just one level can take over an hour, and doing this for another 150 levels, where later levels require more EXP to level up, would only really be something that a masochist would do. And while it may surprise some of you, I'm not a masochist. I'm someone who likes a challenge, and we would have to play like 4 times the amount of playtime that it took us to get up to this point. Only now, we're just grinding mindlessly, so how can we speed up the grinding? Well, this is one of the major reasons I chose the HD remaster version over the PlayStation 2 version. The only method on the PlayStation 2 is to use cheat codes or use up precious hours of your finite life to the grind, but cheat codes are cheated in my opinion. So let's do a dev-intended method of grinding faster. Remember so many hours ago when I said that the use of the Mercy and Expectations DLC pack was temporarily banned until we have all 25 Magatama and beaten all 3 recent boss fights? Well, we can finally use the Mercy and Expectations DLC. Exclusive to the HD remaster, at the cost of real-life money, the Mercy and Expectations DLC will give you 2 additional maps that you can fast travel to upon reaching Ginza. You can travel to a purple version of Yoyogi Park in the center of Conception, where defeated Matamas and random encounters will give you items that you can sell for a lot of Maka. The other map takes you to where the Demi-Fiend was born, in a brightened up version of Shinjuku Medical Center. If you're wondering what this is, it's a big building with a lot of patients, but that's not important right now. In this DLC dungeon, defeated Matamas will grant you grimoires. There's 2 different types of grimoires though, thin ones and thick ones. By consuming a thin one, you will gain 20% of the EXP needed to get to the next level, so by consuming 5 of these on one demon, they will only need 1 EXP to level up. Thick grimoires, however, give you 100% of the amount of EXP you need, so you only need 1 EXP to level up. So by grinding in this dungeon, we can level up our demons faster by giving them 5 thin grimoires or 1 thick grimoire, leveling up one by one for 4 demons that I intend to use. And to speed up the grinding, we once again use attract pipes. We buy as many attract pipes as we possibly can and dedicate ourselves to the grind. As we grind, we make some changes to our setup. For one, Beelzebub has Null Fire as a passive skill, but since Drain or Repel will do me better, I managed to mutate his skill to Drain Fire while leveling up. Sadly, you cannot mutate to Repel Fire, but hey, Drain Fire is better than Null Fire. For Demi-Fiend, I decided to replace his Fire and Ice Drain with Fire and Ice Repel from the Masakato's Magatama, and later replace Life Surge and Force Boost with Force Repel and Electric Repel. The reason for this is because, while Drained Affinities is useful, it's not a guaranteed full HP heal, and most of our turns has Demi-Fiend fully heal in the party anyway with a B-Chain, whereas if we have Repel Affinities, we can do some damage against both final boss fights as Kagasuchi can attack with all 4 elemental attacks, and Lucifer can attack with Fire and Ice. And since we want to end the fight sooner, Repel will go a long way over Drain. As we level up, we can max out everyone's stats and their HP to 999. And when it comes to healing in between battles, honestly, I barely needed to do any healing. Beelzebub's Victory Cry passive will make him fully healed after a battle ends, and as long as you have the Masakato's Magatama equipped, Demi-Fiend will never take damage regardless of what enemy you fight, so it's impossible to get a game over. And let me just say, this grinding is mentally draining. Don't get me wrong, I prefer a safe and faster way of leveling up than grinding in Kagasuchi's tower for hundreds of hours straight, but this strategy of getting to level 255 is still super repetitive and boring. At least when I did several hours of grinding for previous boss fights, I was at least still being challenged and had the risk of dying, which makes for a funner run. But here, I have nothing to lose and barely need to use any medicines to heal certain Dante. So this grinding process of grinding to 255 with 4 party members took nearly 8 hours long. Mind you, at some point, I had to do some of the grinding without attract pipes as I was running out of gems to buy more. And yeah, 8 hours of mindless grinding to max out 4 demons frickin' sucks. Now, the two ways that you can tell that your demon has reached max level is if your HP reaches 885 if you don't have any mana boost skills, and if you have reached the point where you can't level up past 1 EXP, you are at the max possible level. But hey, at least we used a dev-intended method of over-leveling without using cheat codes. With a total save time of 112.5 hours, we take the fight to Kagutsuchi one more time and see if we can end this super grindy run once and for all. Now, to have a more optimal turn order, depending on the placement you summon your demons from the pause menu, this will determine the turn order if their agility stat is the same. We have no choice but to have Demi-Fiend go first, so we have Cert go second since he has Bright Might and that 50% damage increase, Dante third for that 50% damage increase, and as long as Cert crits with Bright Might, Dante will be acting on a half press turn, and we can get one more half press turn with Beelzebub going forth. So, we can start dancing with the disco ball, and yes, we do far more damage with our basic attacks, but the two things to keep in mind is that leveling up also decreases our physical accuracy and crit rate, which means we have the lowest chances of landing criticals, though it's still possible to land a crit with a basic attack at level 255. And the game acts as if we were debuffed with 1 Secunda, so missing our attacks is something that does happen often, but the massive damage we are doing made the grind more than worth it. Now, the fortunate thing is that anytime Demi-Fiend gets hit with an elemental attack, we can repel that damage, adding on to more hits and instantly ending Kagutsuchi's turn. I can definitely say I made the right call to replace the Drain passives with Repel. When it's a full moon during the first phase, you want to make sure that everyone is fully healed because Vast Light will do so much damage that it will just barely hit anyone's Endure. And we need to have everyone's Endure at the ready for the first Infinite Light. During the first attempt, Kagutsuchi goes for Infinite Light as his first move, hitting everyone's Endure. Afterwards, he uses an AoE basic attack, which can be avenged with a lot of damage. We survive an AoE force attack, but then he says he's Persona 4, and his low health animation is not in sight. He obliterates us, but wait! Did you see that? He was clearly shaken. That means we have reached his low health animation. Seeing just a few frames of that made us realize that this could be possible. We just need to rely on good RNG and hope Kagutsuchi goes for his other attacks and lays off of Infinite Light for as long as possible. Attempt 2, I need to make sure that when I use auto attacks that I turn it off before transitioning between phases, as I have no way to turn it off and can accidentally go for a basic attack on Demi-Fiend's first turn when passing on Demi-Fiend's first turn can guarantee that we can get the most amount of damage on Kagutsuchi. Even though, yes, I have the Might passive, the chances of Demi-Fiend landing crits is really low. Unfortunately for this attempt, Kagutsuchi goes for Infinite Light twice in a row without using any other attack, so if we get this kind of roll, this is a guaranteed loss and we have no way to control this. Attempt 3, his first turn uses an AoE basic attack and Miragidyne. Second turn he uses Maziodyne, and then triggers his dialogue for Infinite Light third turn. Good start so far. He casts Infinite Light, triggering our Endure, and so far, no low health animation. But then, after Cert hits him, he starts shaking. Oh my god, this may be it. After our turn, he goes for Miragidyne, and then we just go all in and...
Oh my god, yes! Oh my god, so many people said this would actually be impossible. It is possible, guys. No buffs, no debuffs, no using skills. It is possible to beat Kagutsuchi on hard difficulty without using skills. So the trick is just pretty much redoing the fight over and over again until we get the attempt where he doesn't go for Infinite Light as much. And thankfully we got an attempt where he just doesn't go for Infinite Light twice. So that's the key to win this fight, is to essentially get that turn where he focuses either on his basic attacks or going with elemental attacks. So that's the key to winning. Oh my god, yes.
Wow, so there you go, guys. 5 out of the 6 endings are possible on hard difficulty without using skills. So now that we proved Kagetsuchi possible, there's only one more fight that stands in our way to prove the true demon ending possible on hard difficulty without using skills. So Lucifer can be extremely challenging if you go in without buffs or debuffs. The first phase of the fight will be the safest in quotation marks, as he mostly goes for Megidolion, Elemental, or his basic attack. Now his basic attack can hit under 500 if he doesn't crit, or over 500 if he does crit, and since this move has a high crit chance and is 100% undodgeable, we just gotta hope that he doesn't attack the same demon twice, especially Demi-Fiend. Though, the blessing in disguise with Lucy's basic attack is that when Avenge triggers, we do far more damage than our basic attack, and we definitely want this to trigger every single time we are hit. Even though Cert will have his weakness exploited to ice, as long as the attack also hits Demi-Fiend or Beelzebub, we can instantly end Lucy's turn while repelling some damage back. Once we reach his second phase, he will use High Cane, which... holy shit, that's a lot of damage. Needless to say, a basic attack is enough to trigger anyone's Endure regardless if it crits or not. And while we can afford to have our allies die since we can just revive them, if Demi-Fiend gets a fatal blow twice, it's game over. And just like Lucy's basic attack, High Cane is 100% undodgeable. And because we have that high chance of missing due to our over-leveling, it's ideal to use your first press turn to heal everyone with a beat chain and just go all out with everyone else. This fight, honest to god, becomes scary because unlike Kagetsuchi where the key to winning is to beat him before his second infinite light, the RNG here comes down to what attacks Lucifer uses and if he mainly targets specific demons. We just gotta hope that Lucy evens out his damage without triggering anyone's Endure or killing them. Something that is entirely luck-based and is completely out of our control. And the less party members we have in the active battle, the more likely Demi-Fiend will get his Endure triggered or die and get a game over. But even without High Cane, Lucy's basic attack can trigger 4 times in one turn if he crits at least twice. And with 2 crits on Demi-Fiend, his Endure has already triggered. Once we reach the third phase, Lucy will go for Root of Evil, which, as mentioned before, has random negative effects. Even though we only lose 50% of our HP, 1 crit from Lucy's basic attack on Demi-Fiend ended our first attempt and I was so on my seat, I accidentally unplugged my controller. Now, while I'm sure Lucifer is wondering how to kill God since he killed off his best demon, thankfully this is a video game, so we can try again. But the downside with this being a video game is that it's designed in a way where, if we fail against Lucifer, we have no choice but to fight Kagetsuchi again. Remember, there's no save stating. And because Kagetsuchi is just as RNG based as Lucifer, it took 5 more attempts before we can even get another attempt against Lucifer. The second attempt went smooth for the first phase, and then starts getting really dangerous in phase 2 when Lucy goes for High Cane and being a jerk when he crits with his basic attacks, or exploits Cert's weakness at the worst possible time. Eventually, I lose my 2 best attackers at the same time, which means I have to spend a good chunk of Demi-Fiend's turns reviving Cert and Dante and getting them back in the party without dying. Easier said than done when you're given only 2 press turns and I have to decide if passing turns is best so Demi-Fiend can act twice. By the time I get everyone back in, Demi-Fiend has already lost his Endure and Root of Evil has only just started triggering. This move can be a literal difference between life and death and whose Endure is going to get triggered. We just gotta hope that Lucy remembers that he needs us alive if he wants to kill God. Sadly, he forgot about his goal and he targets Demi-Fiend after a High Cane, ending the second attempt. So we fight Kagetsuchi again. Thankfully, after 2 failed attempts, we got ourselves a 3rd attempt against Lucifer. Once we reach Root of Evil, I suddenly realized something. Out of the 3 possible ailments that Lucy can afflict us with, Cert can be afflicted with poison since he resists curse attacks, not nullifies it. So sadly, he's not as immune as I thought he was, but still, his Fire Boost passive makes him too good to replace. Just sucks that Demi-Fiend has to play more of the healer in a fight where he's supposed to prove his strength. And yeah, getting through phase 3 sucks when I spend the majority of the time trying to revive and get my team back together. All in a run where playing defensively is not an option and we're barely attacking. But thankfully, we can still do damage through fire and ice repel or avenge from the basic attack. Sadly, the true final boss fight of Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne is not Lucifer, it's dealing with the RNG gods that loves giving us challenge runners PTSD, so a simple high cane and a basic attack ends our attempt. Yeah, if you think this run is worth trying for yourself on hard, you must be a masochist. With 80 deaths in total in this run and extreme low RNG to win against Kagutsuchi and Lucifer combined, we throw ourselves at Kagutsuchi for a long while. After 10 more failed attempts against Kagutsuchi with no signs of the RNG gods being nice, my chat suggested something. Since I already proved Kagutsuchi possible to beat on hard 3 times already, why not skip the fight and just prove Lucifer possible? Because if Lucifer is possible, then clearly there is that window of chance that both fights are possible in one shot, and if I were to stream this run any longer, I may be here longer than I deserve to be. One suggested using a desktop mod where I can hack the players to do so much damage that it ends the Kagutsuchi fight instantly, and then turn it off when I fight Lucifer, and my first response was, heck no, that's cheating. But then my chat convinced me on 2 factors. One, most challenge runs of Nocturne that do exist actually do cheat somewhat by using a save state between Kagutsuchi and Lucifer, and even Diarly's no buff and debuff run used to cheat to grind to level 255. But you could argue that both cases had a justifiable reason to justify the use of a cheat. And 2, since I'm going into these fights with 39 beads, 48 bead chains, 33 somas, 16 bead of lives, and 15 bombs of Ryzen, it's not like I'm entering the Lucifer fight with 99 of every item, all of which I can definitely grind more of through the lucky ticket system, but thankfully I do have enough bead chains to get me through both fights, so having 99 bead chains is not really necessary. Well, once I reached 90 deaths in total, I decided to give in, download a desktop mod, and with a simple press of a button, I can have my party do so much damage that Kagutsuchi doesn't even get a chance to attack us in either phase. And once the fight is over, it's an easy press of the button to turn this cheat off. So now that we can bypass one boss fight with extreme RNG chances, we can now see if the true final boss fight is possible with the same amount of RNG chances. So let's do this. So for those who have knowledge on the Lucifer fight, you might be wondering, how am I going to deal with Lucifer if I haven't even reached his scripted Dio Raw Hand skill yet? Yeah, that is no joke. If you do about 40,000 damage to Lucifer, he will fully heal himself with Dio Raw Hand once. Not only does this reset the fight, but it makes him have more than 100k worth of HP. And the answer of how I can handle it is, I just simply don't play on the Chronicles version. Yeah, the Dio Raw Hand skill is a skill that is exclusive to the Chronicles version of the game, and only if you're playing on hard difficulty. While Lucifer can use Diorama, he thankfully never uses Dio Raw Hand in the Maniacs version, even if you play on hard difficulty. I've heard from some people that this move is added in the Maniacs version of the HD remaster, as the Maniacs version is based off of the Chronicles version, but with Dante instead of Raido. But I can assure you that out of all my attempts against Lucifer, I have never seen Dio Raw Hand be used once, so thankfully that's a skill I don't have to worry about. And honestly, I'd rather not have a harder version of the fight that already has ridiculous RNG as is. Sadly, just like Kagutsuchi, we die so many times against Lucifer. This is honestly making me glad I did not choose to go against a cheat to bypass Kagutsuchi, because a low chance of doing something plus a low chance of doing something equals a ridiculous low chance of doing something. And I want to be able to do something so I can have something to show you guys. After 5 more failed attempts, I ended my stream, which was like 6 hours long. So I do another stream and continue to fight the final boss fight that is the RNG gods. So we do the same thing as always, have Demi-Fiend be our main healer and have our allies do most of the damage. Sadly, before I even finish the first phase, I lose my Endure, no thanks to Lucy using 3 attacks on Demi-Fiend, included 2 basic attacks. Well, I know this is going to be a failed attempt. Hopefully the RNG gods are nicer in the harder phases. Now, while yeah, it sucks that Lucy can heal himself with Diorama, thankfully this move is a blessing in disguise since Demi-Fiend and Beelzebub, who don't have a 50% damage boost, alone can do more damage than he heals alone, and it means less of a chance of him killing us. Thankfully, I was getting an attempt where I was getting pretty far into phase 3, but then I fucked up and kept the auto on.
No.
Holy shit. I was legit speechless and unable to register what just happened. Despite an accident on my part, Dante managed to defeat the fallen angel for us, prove it to Lucifer that Demi-Fiend is capable of killing God despite spending the majority of his turns using bead chains. Well, since we proved our worth, the demons go marching one by one to the Great Will's front door to tell him he's a meanie poo-poo head for resend worlds as tax write-offs, and while the true final battle is left ambiguous, I can only assume that we succeed according to our appearance in SMT5, and we are married to Sir with Beelzebub as best man, and Dante is probably questioning his life choices for helping a demon of chaos despite being a demon hunter. I don't know if this is out of character or not, I haven't played his games yet. Well, there you go, guys. Despite the insanely low chances and lots of grinding, it is indeed possible to beat Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne without using skills while playing on hard difficulty and getting the true demon ending. And wowee, what a run. This definitely felt awesome to complete, as the majority of people suspected this run to be impossible. In fact, I was kind of expecting both final boss fights to be undoable. But us challenge runners say no to the impossible and just do stupid ideas anyway. So, would I recommend trying this run for yourself? Personally, I would say no, but if you're a hardcore Nocturne fan, I think this is a decent challenge to try out, but I strongly don't recommend playing on hard difficulty, especially since you need to be at max level for the final boss fights. But if you do want to feel the challenge that I felt, but make it less grindy, I say play on the HD remaster so you can change between hard and normal, and use normal difficulty when doing any shopping or healing at the fountain. Otherwise, I would only recommend this run on normal difficulty, or just playing the game as it was intended. Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne is a game that I grow to admire the more I play it. While yes, it is a hard game, and there's a lot of archaic game choices, it's not as unfair as others make it out to be. The coding is questionable since a physical build is more efficient than a magic build, but the turn-based system is honestly a more challenging and engaging way of playing a turn-based combat game over Persona's way of doing turn-based combat. It requires thinking, smart strategy, efficient uses of buffs and debuffs, and even in a challenge run that restricts most useful moves, we still had to strategize around not using skills by relying on a good strategy, the use of items, relying on certain demons and their builds, and good uses of certain passive skills. I'm definitely glad I did this run, but I'm definitely glad the grind is over. Seeing those goddamn mannequins scamming me with the lucky ticket system makes me wish I got Chiaki's ending instead. Anyway, thank you to my channel members including Thank You Ronald and Deadshot. If you would like to have your name at the end of an It's a Gamer video, be sure to become a channel member today. Any support will be greatly appreciated. Also, be sure to give this video a like, comment, subscribe, and ding the bell for more It's a Gamer content. I definitely have more videos in the works that should hopefully take less time to make than this run, but all I can say is, thank you so much for sticking with me through this long journey, especially for this run which took about 9 months to make. There's still more from It's a Gamer to come, so you all have a good day, good night, and if you'll excuse me, I need to reflect on what I could have been spending my hours on instead of doing this run.